They do some good things in Australia. Some things do come from there, good things. Hi, how you all doing? Hare Krishna. So, Braj Mahan Prabhu asked me to do two things today. Discuss cleanliness and punctuality, and also bring up controversial topics. Because I don't shy away from controversial topics. Of course, we have to be sensitive, but we don't shy away. First thing I want to do is, I was talking about something yesterday. I want to try and play an audio bite for you. Hopefully you'll all be able to hear it. This is Prabhupada speaking in Mayapur in 1976. I think it's, I can't remember, it's March or April, but one of those times. So you have to listen very carefully. And do we have a microphone where I can stick here on the speakers, or that's asking too much? Don't worry. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it.
Is this after he used the bathroom, the toilet incident?
Huh?
This is after the blood shower.
Just like I was rebuking that toilet. This is so nasty, tamogone. And if I have no response to such tamogone place, that means I am also of that quality. Just like fire and fire, there is no reaction. But in fire and water, there is reaction. Between fire and fire, there is no reaction. But fire and water, there.
And just one thing, listen carefully, because I'm going to ask you things about this, yeah? It's really important. This is such an important lecture. And it's not like I've got a toilet obsession. Don't worry about that. I don't. But Prabhupada was really just concerned about it.
Satogone, there is no reaction. Tamogone, there is no reaction. In English it is called incompatible. When different quality, that is reaction, chemical reaction, acid and alkali. Acid and acid you mix, there is no reaction. But acid and alkali, if you mix, there will be similarity. The karanam gunasangayasa sadasat janmajonishu. If one is developing tamogone, then if he becomes a pig next life, there is no reaction. He will be very glad that I am pig, I am dog. There is no reaction. But if one is satogone, then he cannot tolerate. Immediately obnoxious, such a nasty condition. I am very sorry, there was no reaction in such nasty toilet room. And you are getting sacred thread, the quality of Brahmana or Sadhguru. It is very regrettable. Nobody reacted. So, this is the position that unless we taturajastamo bhava kamalo bhadayasthate cheta etai anavidya sthite satte prasidati. We have to cut down this rajagun tamagun, otherwise there is no improvement. If a person in Krishna consciousness is found, no reaction in rajagun tamagun, then he is a dull stone, it is not improving. It is simply show bottle. Show bottle will not die. Tato rajastamo bhava, this prescription is there. If one develops Krishna consciousness, then it is to be understood that he has surpassed Satogone, the Brahmanical qualification. Why we offer sacred thread to a person coming from very, very low memory. Because it is to be understood by chanting Hare Krishna mantra, by following the regulatory principle, he has already come to the platform of Satoguna. But if it is a false thing, there is no need of second initiation. There must be, one must come. Our process is, don't do this, do this. Chant Hare Krishna mantra 16 down, and don't do this, no illicit sex, no meditation. That means he is becoming purified. He is becoming purified from the rotten condition of Rajaguna and Tama. But if he does not, then there should be no second initiation. This should be the rule.
Okay, quite a strong statement Prabhupada was making there. What do you learn from that? I'm going to ask every person.
You have to be very serious to chant and follow the 4 regulative principles when
Okay.
you are taking the second initiation, which is like purifying yourself.
Okay, very good. Thank you. What do you learn from that? Or what can you apply from that?
I think I was thinking of what Prabhupada was saying, that following 4 regulative principles and chanting 16 rounds, you're still in Satoguna, but you can go higher than that.
You have to go higher, yeah.
Initiation, then surpass within Satoguna.
Very good. Radha Govinda, what do you learn? Or what can you apply?
Have a steady mind to stick to the rules and the regular principles, and don't ever fall down, so that you can, keep on constant regulation and get certain initiation.
Okay, good. What do you learn?
That you can determine what mode you're in by how you interact with.
Yeah, very good point. By how something influences you. And Prabhupada was saying at the beginning, if you're in the mode of ignorance, in the next life you'll get a pig's body, and you'll be very happy. But for someone who's in the mode of goodness, there's most abominable. Yeah, very good point. And you, what do you learn?
Well,
Sorry, I don't remember all your names from last year. I just,
Padma
Padmamali, thank you.
Well, when you choose or when you receive the mercy to be a Brahmana and get the second initiation, is a big responsibility, right? It's a big responsibility.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have to be very seriously and take be very carefully and purify yourself and help to others to purify too.
Yeah, very good. But what if you don't purify?
What?
What if we don't purify ourselves?
Clean our hearts
Yeah.
and our body and help to be ready to make this correct service to the Lord.
Okay. Prabhu, what did you learn from that lecture? I know you came in halfway through, but you would have heard half of it.
What I could understand and learn is for coming out of goodness, at least one has to be regulated.
Mm.
For that, one has to be pure in his consciousness by following the 4 regulative principles and chanting 16 rounds.
Yeah. So this is also very helpful. Shobhmaya Mataji?
Yes, sir. My understanding is like, when you follow the 4 regulative principles, that you really, it's not like you know that, but you have to follow that.
Mm-hmm.
And more of goodness and beside duties, and if you
Yeah.
it's not for the show of like, okay, I'm a devotee now, I'm a Brahmin, and I can do this and that, but then if you don't follow the 4 principles, what is the result? That is
Yeah.
an offense.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. It's what I call actively engaging with the process of bhakti. Because you can just be here and turn up every day, and chant japa, etc. But if you're not active in your engagement, does the heart become purified? To some extent, yes, but how rapidly? And Prabhupada's making the point there, and this is the point I was trying to allude to with you, is that if we're not purifying, if it's just a show bottle thing, if it's just external, then there should be no Brahman Diksha. Just because you're a devotee, and chanting Hare Krishna, there's only one reason we need to get Brahman Diksha. What's that? There's only one reason for it. To do deity worship. That's the whole point. Jiva Goswami is very clear on that the whole idea of receiving these Pancharatri Gayatri mantras is especially for Grihastas. And the Grihastas will do deity worship. Because you see, like, in that time, there were a lot of people were doing the Babaji thing. The Babajis don't do deity worship. Rare. I mean, some do, like Bangsidas Babaji did, but it's quite rare. And like, even with his deity worship, it was quite, I guess you could say, controversial. Prabhupada said he was the most controversial fellow. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would not allow his disciples to go to see him because he said they won't understand. Not that there was something wrong with him, but because he was so advanced, they wouldn't understand. Anantacharya, what did you?
Not take second initiation lightly.
Yeah. That's a serious thing. Getting Brahman Diksha is a very, very serious thing. And there's a responsibility, and the Prabhupada was making that point. There's a responsibility with being a Brahmana. And there's that verse we chant after we do Archman. Is anyone familiar with that verse? Yeah. So just as you can see the sun in the sky of the night, so the wise and learned Brahmanas, they can see the abode of the Lord. But not only can they see the abode, they are able to reveal the abode to others. So a Brahmana is not just someone who's got a mantra or a thread or whatever. A Brahmana is someone who knows Brahman. That's what it means. So just like when you get initiated, what does initiation mean? The word initiation itself. Okay, we have the ritual we call initiation, but what does initiate mean? To begin. It means you're beginning something. So it's not like, from the point of initiation, ping, all of a sudden, the magic wand comes out and you're a Brahmana. Doesn't work like that. We have to work on cultivating this awareness of what it means to be a Brahmana, but also work on cultivating these qualities. Prabhu, what did you get from this excerpt?
Just how abominable the modes of passion and ignorance are. Like everyone, it seems very normal just to walk outside in the street, but really, like, most people are going to become animals. So
if we don't save them.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very abominable. But the problem is, because we come from that background, we're habituated to it, and we bring it with us. So you'll see, it's like, I say this, wherever I go in ISKCON, the one thing I see which is lacking in all of our temples is cleanliness. There's a few temples that are pretty good. The Budapest temple is quite clean, and the farm in Hungary is quite clean, because Shiva Ramraj is, he's just very Brahminical. He's so clean. I think I told that story yesterday about, he wouldn't get in a car because the car wasn't clean. He walks the talk. He doesn't just sort of talk about it, but he lives that. That's he's very clean. We can see with Srila Prabhupada also, extremely clean. And this is the symptom of someone who's living a Brahminical life, because they're cultivating the mode of goodness. And the mode of goodness means cleanliness, means purity. Acharya, what did you get from that?
Agreeing with what everyone else said, took that away, but I think what I took away was when Srila Prabhupada said, and I can't remember the exact word he used, but I'm surprised that nobody had the reaction to this toilet, and yet I'm giving you this thread.
Regrettable.
Yeah, it's regrettable. Yeah.
Very regrettable. You are getting Brahman Diksha.
You're wearing this thread.
Can you believe that? The Prabhupada was saying to all of his senior Vaishnavas, sannyasis and Brahmanas and stuff, it's just very regrettable. There was no response. The Prabhupada said there was no response. Because, you hear the story, it's not recorded, but, it's recorded by devotees' memories and stuff, but you can hear the story of when Prabhupada was on that morning walk and he came across this toilet. He was so upset. He was chastising the leaders of Mayapur at that time because there was no reaction.
But we don't use that bathroom, Srila Prabhupada.
No, it's a workers' bathroom.
That's what I'm saying, that's what they said.
Yeah.
No, that's not our bathroom.
Yeah, but what's that to do with it? There was one time in here in the USA that Prabhupada was really expert at finding things like that. So there's like, you know, we've heard so many stories about how when Prabhupada would come to a temple, there was always this frantic endeavor to make the temple spotlessly clean and freshly painted and everything really nice for Prabhupada, because Prabhupada was coming. This is the devotees manifesting their love for Prabhupada. But one place Prabhupada was coming, it was a house, and they painted up and there was, you know, made everything really nice, and there was a basement. And so all the stuff they were using for the renovation and stuff, they just opened the door and threw everything down the stairs, literally threw it down the stairs into the basement. And so the temple president was taking Prabhupada on a tour of the temple, and he was very deftly whisking Prabhupada past the door every time, you know, so he didn't actually open the door to the basement. And then what happened was Prabhupada, he's no fool, you know. He got the layout of the temple. He just somehow or other he walked, so he just came straight back to the door and says, "Oh, and what is in here?" And he pushed it open with his cane, and then the door was open and just all this junk was there. So the thing is, everywhere must be, you know, neat, clean, and tidy. Prabhupada was very adamant, because if we don't live that example, how are we going to teach others? You know, if our house is not neat, clean, and tidy, if our, you know, everything, you know, our bead bag, our clothes, whatever we have, is not neat, clean, and tidy, how do we impress others? We have to do that. Braj Mahan, what did you get from?
The most powerful thing was Prabhupada's insistence on this concept of if you don't have a reaction to something, you're of the same quality.
Yeah.
That's the thing that stuck out to me most, like fire don't react.
Yeah, very powerful statement, isn't it? Very, very powerful statement. And you know, when I heard this, the first time I heard this, I was just like really taken by it. I just thought this is such a powerful instruction from Srila Prabhupada. I want to read something to you. This is from the Madhya Lila 15.108 purport. I was quoting this yesterday. In his Bhakti Sandarbha 283 to 284, Srila Jiva Goswami describes the importance of deity worship and initiation, Diksha, as follows. It is Srimad Bhagavatam's opinion that the process of deity worship is not actually necessary. So that means, what are we doing? Why bother? It's not necessary. Just as the specific prescriptions of the Pancharatra and other scriptures do not have to be followed, the Bhagavatam enjoins that even without practicing deity worship, one can achieve the complete success of human life by any of the other devotional processes, such as simply offering oneself at the Lord's feet for his protection. And of course, you know, chanting and hearing, etc. And the Bhagavatam does tend to emphasize the process of hearing and chanting above anything else. Nonetheless, Vaishnavas following the path of Sri Narada and his successors endeavor to establish a personal relationship with the Lord by receiving the grace of a bona fide spiritual master through initiation. And in this tradition, the devotees are obliged at the time of initiation to begin engaging in deity worship. So again, he's making that same point. They're obliged. It's not like it's an optional extra or something you can do. Actually, they're obliged. And then he goes on to explain why. Although deity worship is not essential, the material conditioning of most candidates for devotional service requires that they engage in this activity. When we consider their bodily and mental conditions, we find that the character of such candidates is impure and their minds are agitated. Therefore, to rectify this material conditioning, the great sage Narada and others have at different times recommended various kinds of regulation for deity worship. Now, the thing I find astounding about this, okay, we understand the contamination and stuff like that. When did he write this? About 480, 490 years ago in Vrindavan. So he's saying then that the material and mental condition, you know, of most candidates is so contaminated that they have to do deity worship. How much more relevant is that now? It's just, you know, it's so relevant for us now, especially, you know, because we were talking yesterday about being a brahmana in a place like New York. Very difficult. But by engaging in deity worship, it becomes very, very easy, because you're interacting directly with Krishna, and Krishna is so powerful. He's like the complete essence of purity. And when we come into touch with the deity, when we serve the deity, when we take darshan of the deity, then we become purified. Prabhupada told the GBC one time, he said, you know, the Pujari is the most fortunate person in the entire world because the Pujari is directly interacting with the deity. He's touching the deity, he's bathing the deity, he's feeding the deity, he's dressing the deity, putting the deity to bed, waking the deity up. And the Pujari has such a wonderful life because the Pujari is always directly interacting with Krishna. And what we see is some Pujaris have actually got a sense of this, isn't it? And so when you're dressing the deities and someone else wants to come and do the service, it's like, you don't want to let go because you're really having this experience of the presence of Krishna. And you know, I've had this experience myself sometimes. I remember one time I was in London and I was tying London Ishvara's dress on. I put my arms around him to tie the dress on. And I felt like I was putting a dress on a person, not a, you know, like he wasn't feeling like a deity. He was feeling like he's there. You know, and I'm sure at various times devotees get glimpses of that. And then as we purify our hearts more and more, it's no longer a glimpse. It's a constant experience. And you'll see that in that story of Sakshi Gopal, how that young Brahmana was interacting with the deity in such a way. He accepted that the deity is Krishna directly. He didn't have any kind of doubt of Krishna's ability to talk with him, but also Krishna's ability to walk. You know, so, you know, through the process of deity worship, we can really come to this awareness. And in this age, in this fallen age of Kali, deity worship is so important, even though it's not the process for this age, which is kind of interesting because we see that, you know, in the Bhagavatam, the 11th canto, there's different statements about how, you know, that these other processes are okay in the other age, but they're not so important in this age. But we see then our Acharya, Jiva Goswami, he's the foremost scholar on Gaudiya Vaishnava literature. There's no one in our history who's more knowledgeable and erudite than Jiva Goswami. And he's really making this point quite strongly that, you know, deity worship is essential in this age. And by the practice of deity worship, we become purified. You know, I just thought I'd share those two references. And that lecture of Prabhupada for me is just so powerful. And it really helps you to see, or helps you to understand where you're at and how to, you know, just like you can read, there's books like Madhurya Kadambini and other books like that by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he analyzes the advancement in devotional service, and he gives the symptoms, like, you know, if you're in this stage of devotional service, this is what you'll experience. If you're in that stage of devotional service, you'll experience this. So in the same way, Prabhupada is explaining how one who's contaminated by the modes of material nature can understand where they're at, just by how you respond to different situations. So very, very important information for us, I think. And another really, any comments so far? Because there's, I mean, I got like bucket loads of quotes on cleanliness and purity and things like that. Any comments at all? Questions?
So when you explained, or when you said that you have that feeling and intimacy when you were tying London Ishwari, dressing them, so you had that feeling. So if somebody sees you in that bhav, is it like they can say that it's just something you just are having, but the other person doesn't understand what you're having? How do you?
I mean, for me, I just see it as a drop of mercy from Krishna. Yeah. That's all I see it. I don't think of bhava or intimacy or anything. That's, you know, I'm on the stage of Vaidhi. Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. That's where I practice that. I understand the desires I have in my heart. I understand these are symptomatic of someone who's you know, on a low level of devotional service. I get that, you know. And as far as, and we discussed this, the idea of intimacy yesterday. I remember having a conversation with Janani Prabhu, who in many ways is my Achan Guru. I've learnt much about him from the process on the process of deity worship. And he made the point very clearly years ago. He said, there's no question of our, understanding our relationship with the deity when we're in the stage of Vaidhi Bhakti. So what other, I rarely talk about it because I think when you talk about these things, they're often misunderstood. But I've had many experiences of reciprocation with the deity. That's not talking about me. That's not talking about me being an advanced devotee or anything silly like that. What that's talking about is how Krishna reciprocates with our sincere desire to serve. So that's all I see is, because we have this impetus or this desire to serve Krishna, and because we're trying to cultivate devotional service, Krishna proves to us that he's there. He proves to us he's real. I'll give an example. Recently there was riots in Bangladesh, and one of our temples was firebombed and burned to the ground. I mean, just completely destroyed. And I saw this video of the devotees rummaging through the rubble and all the burnt out beams and stuff. And there in the middle of all this rubble was Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra, untouched. Now, if that doesn't build your faith in Krishna, you've got a stone heart. If it doesn't build your faith that the deity is Krishna directly, then you really need to look at your practice of bhakti. Because that's just, and a similar thing happened in Fiji. I think might have been Lautoka. I'm not sure. It might have been Lautoka. The temple was attacked and same thing, firebombed. And the place didn't quite burn to the ground, but there was a pretty bad fire. The fire was so hot that the fan on the roof melted in front of the deity. And Kaliya Krishna, he's made of fiberglass, untouched. Fiberglass is highly flammable. So there's things like this happen all the time. So that's all it is for me. It's not like there's no bhava, there's no intimacy there. It's just like Krishna's just giving us a little drop of mercy, just to build our faith, just so we push on further in Krishna consciousness. It's just like sometimes after Rath Yatra here, for instance, you have this kirtan festival. And have you ever had the experience where you're sitting in the kirtan, and I find this happens to me when I'm sitting in the kirtan for several hours at a time, and you don't do anything else. You don't bring your phone or your laptop with you, because you do that, you're going to get distracted. And you just sit there and you chant the holy name, and you chant the holy name, and you chant the holy name, and you get this experience that I could do this for the rest of my life. But you can't. But you get that experience. You really have that sense that this is life. This is where it's at. And that's just Krishna giving us a drop of mercy to show us what is in store, what the future holds. And if we can develop our faith in the service of the deity, if we can really, place all our affection in the deity, then we'll experience that more and more. There's a really nice letter, I think it's a letter, and Prabhupada wrote, this is we're using this as the, not the dedication, but like in the front of books, sometimes you put a reference or a quote or something like that. Let me see if I can find it, because I always get it wrong, which I'm very adept at doing. Front pages, is it there? No, I'd have to look more closely for it. But essentially what Prabhupada's saying is that if a devotee worships the Lord with all his heart, he dresses him nicely, and he cares for him, Krishna smiles. And if Krishna smiles on you just once, your life is perfect. You have nothing else to want. And that's all we want to do, is we want to get Govinda Dev to smile upon us. And so by following, like Prabhupada, he's given us all these different instructions in deity worship. He's not wasting our time. He's not just trying to give us something to do because we're bored or whatever. He's giving us the process whereby we can go back to Godhead in as quick as a way as possible. Like sometimes you'll see that, there have been devotees in the past. I'm not going to get into personalities and that, but they'll talk about giving something higher or giving the shortcut method or something like that. What Prabhupada gave was just coming in the line of Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. It is the quickest way back home to Godhead, and just by practicing the rules and regulations of Vaidhi Sanda Bhakti, it will bring us to the higher stage of devotional service, whereby we can actually start to understand our deeper relationship with Krishna. So it's very, very important that we understand the rules. This is one of the main reasons I travel around, is to help devotees to understand what deity worship is, how to practice deity worship, and how to get the benefit of deity worship. Because a perfect process, and if you engage in it fully, you'll go back to Godhead. There's no doubt. There's another letter that Prabhupada mentions. He said that he was writing to Himavati, I think, and he said, if you perfect yourself in the process of deity worship, this is called Archan Siddhi. And if you achieve Archan Siddhi, it means that at the end of this life, you go directly back to the spiritual world. You don't have to go to some place where Krishna is performing his pastimes. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's realization. He explained this to me, that because when you achieve Archan Siddhi, because there's 5 forms of Krishna, right? 5 most important forms of Krishna. There's Pada, there's Vyuha, Vaibhav, Vilas, and Archa. So the Archa is one of the incarnations of Krishna. So if you perfect yourself in deity worship, this means that you're having a reciprocal exchange with the deity. You're engaged in Krishna's pastimes. So, because we see that sometimes Prabhupada describes, it's like, you perfect yourself in this life, then you go to some university or some place in the universe where Lord Chaitanya or a form of Krishna performing pastimes, and then you perfect yourself, just like we see with a Jamil. He chanted the name of Narayan, the Vishnu Dudus came, they saved him, they took him to Haridwar, and there he perfected himself and he went back to Godhead. But if you're engaged in deity worship, you're directly engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you'll go back to Godhead. So it's a very, very powerful process. And if we just...
The 5th one you said after Vilas?
There's Pada, there's Vyuha, like the Chatta Vyuha, there's Vaibhav, Vilas, and Archa. I think that's the right list. I'm not very good with lists. Like, you listen to Maharaj, he's just like rattling off one verse after the next, after the next, after. It's like the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita practically, I can't do that. I don't have that kind of memory. Anything else on that? I should read some more. Yes,
I have
Shoma.
a request.
A request?
So, if you just give everybody, like, what should be, like, basic, like what should the Brahmana or whoever Pujari goes on the altar, what are the basic things they should follow? It's not like I do myself. Okay, if something is there, oh no, it's not mine.
It's got to be really basic.
So, like, Prabhupada always like punctuality and cleanliness.
Yeah.
All the basics they always do.
But if you want to be real basic, follow the head Pujari. That's what you're meant to do. That's Prabhupada established authority structures in ISKCON.
But if it doesn't happen, then what?
Well, I mean, if you don't follow authority, how are you going to be successful in what you're trying to do? It's like in anything. It's just like any one of us, right, who's a Brahmana could easily give Gayatri mantra to any person. But what's the benefit of that? Will they actually make any advancement from that? Will they get the benefit of chanting the mantra? No. Sampradaya vihinaye mantraste nishpala mataha. If they don't take initiation in a bona fide sampradaya from a bona fide person, then that endeavor produces their mantra or their initiation produce no fruit. Mantraste nishpala, no fruit. So if we don't follow authority, there's no fruit. It's as simple as that. And that's, like the whole sampradaya. You look at the sampradaya, we have Krishna, then we have, the various acharyas that come down from Krishna. You've got Lord Chaitanya, then different acharyas that come down from Lord Chaitanya to Srila Prabhupada, to, the authority structure is established in ISKCON, i.e. the GBC. Like Hangsa Rupa was reading this morning from various references, and Prabhupada was talking about, they were asking Prabhupada questions, and what about this problem, what about that problem? He says, when the GBC meets, they can discuss. He kept saying the same thing. When the GBC meets, they can discuss. And so Prabhupada was really firmly establishing the authority structure in ISKCON. And then we see the temple, he also established there should be a temple president, a secretary, and a treasurer. He established these things also. And we see how the GBCs also established things such as regional secretaries, and now they have zonal supervisors. So it's all part of the authority structure in ISKCON. You know, Prabhupada also established the notion of ministers. That was something he also established. So we have the authority structure in ISKCON. And the basic thing is to follow the authority structure. Now, if you want to get into like different aspects of what we follow, cleanliness and punctuality, as you mentioned, they're vital. Cleanliness is a very big topic. And Prabhupada, he simplifies, he says there's two types of cleanliness, external and internal. For external cleanliness, we bathe. For internal cleanliness, we chant Hare Krishna. But that's a very simplified version. If you look at external cleanliness, it's just like, you know, I was on the altar this morning and just having a look around, and there's areas that could definitely be improved there. There's some simple fixes, but some things might take a little bit more. But you know, you know, these are essential. There's a letter where Prabhupada explains that if we're always attentive to punctuality and cleanliness, then the deity will be happy to accept our service. You can also flip it. If we're not attentive to cleanliness and punctuality, will Krishna accept our service? So that's you know, the different things. There's considerations of respect. You know, because if you look in Padma Purana, it discusses offences and it breaks them into 4 basic areas. I think it's 4. There's respect, endeavour. Can you remember these, Acharya? There's 4 basic areas. I can't remember them all. So, like, just like respect, for instance, when we're on the altar, some altars you find devotees are very talkative. This is disrespecting Krishna. We don't talk on the altar. I mean, of course, you know, if you want some blue tack, you don't know where the blue tack is, obviously, you know, because that's directly connected with the service. So you can talk of things directly connected to the service, but usually, you know, not like you're right here with the deity, Krishna's face is there and you're talking to someone. No, that's disrespectful, because this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly in front of us, and I am Krishna's, you know, infinitesimal jiva servant. So we need to have that proper Aishwarya. And even like, you know, we might be dealing with senior devotees, but we have a position of having to give some instruction or direction. You maintain the respect, but you do your service. So there's things like that. You know, treating the deity as a person, not treating the deity as a statue. Prabhupada, he gave 5 things that were very important in deity worship: cleanliness, punctuality, nice bog offerings, nice dressing, and beautiful flowers and scents. So these are other things. I mean, there's so many details there that we need to learn. One time Prabhupada was giving some instruction on deity worship. This is before everyone called him Prabhupada. And one of the devotees said, "Oh, Swamiji, there's so many rules." And Prabhupada quipped back, he said, "If I told you all the rules, you'd faint." And that's what deity worship is like. Deity worship means rules. And it's a process of Vaidhi. It means rules. If you don't like following rules, do something different. Don't do deity worship. You know, because it's all about rules. And the point is, by following those rules, you purify the heart. And like, you know, when people, you know, get involved in deity worship and they say, "Oh, I just want to do my own thing." No, you follow the rules. That's what deity worship. If you want to get the benefit, you know, if you don't want to get the benefit, do whatever you think. But if you actually want to get the result of deity worship, you follow the rules, because it's designed that way. It's designed to you know, and that's what in that Jiva Goswami quote he was saying. You know, the Acharya, you know, the great sages like Narad Muni and others have at various times given rules for, you know, prescriptions for deity worship. So it means you follow the rules. That's what deity worship is. You know, when we get devotees who want to, you know, establish deities whimsically and worship them whimsically. I had some senior Vaishnavas wanted to establish deities of Lord separately. One devotee wanted to establish Lord Chaitanya. One devotee wanted to establish Lord Nityananda. The devotee who wanted to establish Lord Chaitanya wanted to install him and worship him as a sannyasi. How do you do that? What worship? Even we see that who was it who was offering the oil to Lord Chaitanya? Jagannatha Pandit. He wanted to give Lord Chaitanya oil massage. He said, I'm a sannyasi, I can't do that. And then the other devotee wanted to worship Lord Nityananda as an avadut. How are you going to do that? What's the worship of an avadut? I mean, they're practically crazy. They're just so unpredictable and unconventional. So these are just speculations. Our founder Acharya has clearly explained. We worship Lord Chaitanya as a grihasta. Otherwise, how are you going to worship him? How are you going to dress him opulently? He simply wore his kopan and a loincloth. That's all he wore. Didn't even have a danda. So, our acharyas, the scriptures have given us very clear guidelines, well, not even guidelines, rules on how to serve the deity. So the first thing is we need to understand these things, what this is all about, how to do it. And then you follow them. And as you follow them, you become purified. Your heart becomes purified. And you start to understand more and more who Krishna is.
One example for endeavor, like you gave us an example for respect, not talking at the altar.
Yeah.
What will be a good example for endeavor?
Like for instance, when you have the service of cooking for the deities, and Prabhupada would say like the offering for the deities should be opulent, the offerings for the devotees should be succulent, so nice and tasty. But okay, we're cooking the Raj bowl for Krishna. I can't be bothered, so I'm just going to make some khichdi or something like that. Lack of endeavour. I'll see what I can find for you. I've got there is a document I have here, but I'll just see if I can find it. So much information here. Just bear with me a second. Duplicate. Hare Krishna, regional courses. I think it was in the Bhakti Shastri course I did. Hare Krishna. Bhakti Shastri course material. I found the right folder now, I've just got to dig up which one I'm looking for. Um, 2.1, 2.2, here we go, offences. Documents, PDFs, save reference. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 categories of offences. This is from Padma Purana. Offences due to lack of purity in the body and mind. That means things like you don't touch the deity without washing your hands. You brush your teeth every day, stuff like that. Don't enter the room, the deity room, without or touch the body of the deity after having oil smeared on your body. Because, like the process of bathing, for instance, sometimes devotees will rub oil on their bodies. Now, the function of the oil is to open up the pores of the skin so that when you bathe, it rinses the dirt out. But if you do it the other way around, if you bathe first and then put oil, you consider to be unclean. So that's due to lack of purity. To touch the deity before you've taken bath. You shouldn't touch a woman during her menstrual period. You shouldn't enter the temple directly after sexual intercourse. You shouldn't enter the temple after touching a dead body or after seeing a dead body or visiting a crematorium. You don't enter there in a contaminated state. And there's different rules there, which I'm not going to go into in detail now because it's a bit of a job. When you're perspiring, better you're not perspiring when you're doing deity worship. And neither should you break the worship to go to the bathroom. Of course, if it's an emergency, you have to do it. But then there's also rules you need to follow there. The deity should not be bathed in water that's been touched by the fingernails, because the fingernails are impure. You know, it's like if you're like holding the conch and your fingers are inside the conch, the water touches your fingernails, the water becomes impure. Shouldn't be angry in front of the deities due to lack of respect. You don't belch before the deity. You don't come into the temple with shoes on or in a palanquin. Although it's interesting, in Los Angeles, Prabhupada, when they had the La Ciega Boulevard temple, Prabhupada wanted to have an area at the back where people could come in and just like a darshan line kind of thing, right at the back of the temple, where they could come with their shoes on. So he was willing to make these adjustments to some of the rules of the scriptures in order to give people the opportunity to see the deity. One should not avoid bowing down before the deity. So it means when you come, like it's becoming a common thing. Devotees come to the temple, they touch the floor. What's that? What's that? It's disrespecting the deity. You're coming into the Lord's temple. We bow down. We bow down. We should submit ourselves. I am your servant. You are my master. You know. I mean, of course, if devotees don't know that, or people don't know, that's one thing. But when you're coming into the temple, usually what you do is you bow down, you stretch out, and you're meditating that your head is under the feet of the Lord or at the feet of the Lord, because this is the mood of the servant, placing myself at your feet. Don't bow down on one hand, you should bow down with both hands. If you're carrying something, put it down. Don't circumambulate in front of the deity. So just like, I came into the temple room yesterday and Jagannath was giving darshan and Tulsi was there. I wanted to circumambulate Tulsi, but I couldn't because Jagannath was giving darshan. And in the same way, you can't worship Tulsi in that environment either. You can't do any worship to any person in front of the deity. Now, of course, we do Srila Prabhupada's worship in front of the deity. My understanding of that is because Prabhupada is the founder of Acharya. He's the one who's given us the worship. So it's a little bit different. You don't spread your legs before the deity. Hare Krishna, Maharaj, nice to see you again. Like sometimes you'll see devotees or people will sit with their legs sort of spread out wide. Not appropriate. If people find it difficult to sit on the floor, give them a chair. Not a problem. You don't sit before the deity holding ankles, elbows, knees with your hands. Not really sure what that one's about. You don't lie down before the deity. Sometimes you'll see people lying down in the temple room.
There's one thing which I heard, I just wanted to clarify. In Jagannath Puri, they say that you can sleep in front of the deities, and that's a blessing. I'm not sure if it's like, how does that...
But this is coming from our acharyas, they don't agree with that.
Yeah. They say you can sleep, it's very auspicious when you sleep in front of the Jagannath temple.
But there's many things they say and do we don't agree with. Yeah. Like Western Vaishnavas coming and taking darshan of Jagannath, they don't allow that, but we don't agree with that.
And these people I was particularly in Jagannath Puri in the temple inside, and these people were sleeping. I said, why are they sleeping? And when I said that another Mataji said, no, don't wake them. It's very auspicious when they do these things in front of the deity.
So maybe someone started that room so he could sleep in the temple. I don't know. One should not eat except prasad before the deity. Yeah. So usually, like sometimes you'll see in Vrindavan, for instance, on Dwadasi Day, they'll distribute Mahaprasad from the side of the altar. So the idea is you go to the side and you eat. You don't eat in front of the deity. You can eat off to the side, that's fine. But usually it's just a morsel of Mahaprasad, but don't eat in front of the deity. Do not chew betel. Do not pass air. Do not pass air within the temple. You don't sit with your back towards the deity. The same as Srila Prabhupada. It's becoming more common, I see, in ISKCON temples now. The devotees will sit with their backs to Prabhupada. If you look at the early videos when Prabhupada was giving class and stuff, then you'd see like Prabhupada would be at one end, the deities the other end, and there'd be an aisle in the middle, no one in there, and everyone's sitting, with their side to Prabhupada and side to the deities, so not sitting with their back to anyone. So this is about respect. You don't give charity in front of the deity. You don't break silence while worshipping. You don't talk with others before the deity. You don't eulogize or praise anyone before the deity. You don't talk very loudly before the deity. You do not cry or howl before the deity. Another thing you see quite often these days is children are coming to the temple and they just let loose basically, and they're just crying and carrying on. This is actually not really appropriate for the atmosphere that the temple's trying to. You don't speak harshly, you don't chastise in front of the deity, you don't speak ill names before the deity, you do not take a vow in the name of God, you do not quarrel or fight before the deity, you don't pray. You don't wear that one, that's an offense. One should not worship the deity before a non-devotee. Of course, when we're offering arti and things like that, that's something different, but when we're doing puja, that should not be done publicly, that's usually done privately. Although you will see some temples like Vitala in Pandapur. You can sit there and you can see the Abhishek, you can see all the worship going on there. It's very nice, very, very nice, beautiful deity. Then lack of endeavor. You don't fail to worship the deity according to one's means. And this is, what we're talking about before. It's like, if you have, give an example. Prabhupada gave class here in New York probably about 1966 or 67. And he was talking about the worship of Jagannath Puri. And he said in Jagannath Puri they feed Jagannath 54 times a day. Now some devotees say, oh, that's 54 preparations a day. And Prabhupada said, he said, you count how many times in an hour that is. So you figure 24, 54, that's about 2.5 times an hour he's getting fed. He said, that I want introduced. You Americans have no lack of money. So there you go, Raj. He said that here in New York. This is your goal. So Prabhupada wanted very, very, if you have the facility, then offer that facility to Krishna. Don't use it for your sense gratification. You offer it for Krishna. Should not fail to observe the various festivals for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janmashtami, Rath Yatra, Radhastami, all these things. You don't offer incense without offering some flowers. One should not fail to offer fresh fruit and grains to the Lord according to the season. One should not offer obeisances silently to the spiritual master. So when you offer obeisances to Prabhupada, you say the pranam prayer so he can hear. Or when you're offering to your guru, you say the pranam prayer so he can hear. One should not fail to offer some praise in the presence of the spiritual master. Not praising yourself, praising him. One should not fail to strictly follow the rules and regulations in worshipping the deity. This is it's a lack of endeavor if we don't follow the rules and regulations. Sometimes you hear, oh, Prabhu, it's Kali Yuga, what can you expect? Kali Yuga Brahmanas and things like that. It's a common statement, but it's like, no, there's rules. If you want to get the benefit, you follow the rules. Then what else we have? Oh, you don't touch the deity in a dark room. So, if the lights go out, you should have some, notice here you've got this backup lighting, that's very good. One should not enter the temple of the deity without first making some sound. Right? Most temples have a bell. And you go into the temple, you ring the bell, you chant out, Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda. These are the first 2 items of the 64 items of deity worship. The first one's called Prabodhana, to ring a bell. Should not worship the Lord by sitting on the bare floor. You need to have a sitting place or an asana or mat. Useless flowers without any fragrance should not be offered. You don't offer a flower which has been kept in an unclean pot. Anything which is kept in an unclean pot is impure. And it's just like I was making the point yesterday. I noticed you didn't bring me an Nrsimha cup today. Shy that I might say something. Huh? If the spoon or the Nrsimha cup is dirty, what's the point? It's a useless exercise. The point is that everything needs to be sparkling clean. There's a really interesting photograph you can see of Prabhupada. He's sitting on this like striped multicolored cushion, big cushion. And then he's got a plate in front of him, silver plate. Does anyone know that photo? It's a really nice photo. Anyhow, the plate is shining like the sun. It's so bright and clean. And this is what Prabhupada expected, that everything should be sparkly clean. Yeah? And he mentions in a letter, he's talking about cleanliness. He says, after arti, you shine the arti paraphernalia, so it should be all spotlessly clean. One should not offer foodstuffs which are cooked by a non-Vaishnava. One should not offer any foodstuffs to the deity which has been seen by dogs or other lower animals. A bit difficult these days because, marketplaces and stuff like that, and even, remember I was saying, yes, you at the show, it's like, I just can't believe it, there's an airline in Australia who wants to introduce this idea that people are allowed to take pets on a plane. I probably wouldn't get on the plane if there was a pet on it. It's just so contaminated. But now, it's quite common. You go into a shop and people have their dogs in the shop. And they say, oh, it's a comfort dog. It's like dogs are unclean living entities. In a cultured society, they're not allowed inside. When I was growing up, there was no such thing as a dog going into a shop. It was illegal. If you took a dog into a shop, you could be in big trouble. But now it's so commonplace. The only people who could do it previously were blind people. I don't know. You have seeing eye dogs here? Yeah, so that was a very common thing in Australia. You see blind people have a seeing eye dog. That was understood. That was kind of necessary. But just because they need some comfort, that's what they say, beggars belief. It's just incredible where the society is going. Yes, sir.
Thank you for sharing this. But thinking about the photo that you were saying of Srila Prabhupada, where it's a really nice photo, the plate is sparkling. It wasn't just my understanding. I mean, I've also heard. I was just sharing this with Prabhupada from somebody asked my Guru Maharaj, how did Boston get the name Nugan Beach?
How's what?
How did Boston get the Boston get the name Nugan Beach? And he was saying because everybody from president to the new Bhakta, maybe after Bhagavatam class, everybody cleaned the temple. So everything, it wasn't just one person's responsibility to do it. And it was the mentality that everybody was participating in it, not that I'm doing this one thing and I stand back and just let everybody else clean up after me. Or, I see something, kind of what you were saying, kind of like what we were listening to from Prabhupada's lecture. Everybody was participating in it. I've also heard when we were in Mayapur, somebody gave the example that before Mangalarti, everybody took all the brass faces off the altar and polished them sparkling clean. So it wasn't that it was just one person's responsibility to do this. It was the entire temple's responsibility to keep the temple.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting because often you'll hear devotees talking about how things are different these days, and it's not like it was when Prabhupada was here and stuff, but they talk about certain things that really aren't that important. Like, like devotees telling me the other day, during Prabhupada's times they didn't chant the translations to the Gurvashti or the Gurvandana, for instance. So, is that really that important? But during Prabhupada's times, everything was spotlessly clean. Because they knew Prabhupada wanted that. Prabhupada talked about it so many times. He spoke about it, he encouraged it, he chastised his leaders when things weren't clean. And he wanted everything to be shining like a new pin. He said the temple room should be like glass. If you've been to Budapest, you go to Shivaram Maharaj's room, everything in his room is made of glass. The desks, the stairs, the banisters, all that, it's all glass. Glass has a really interesting quality. You put a fingerprint on it, you can see it stands out like, anything. And you look and everything is spotlessly clean. Prabhupada wanted that the temples were spotlessly clean. He pushed it again and again and again and again. He would you read any letter where Prabhupada's giving Gayatri Diksha, what does he say? Teach them how to be Brahmanas. Teach them how to be clean. He says the same thing again and again and again. Yet I go to the temples in ISKCON and I see they're not clean. So what's going on there? Are we listening to Prabhupada's instructions? I think it's just so vital. And as you're saying, it's not just that this is a service for the new bhaktas, because new bhaktas generally don't know how to clean. Brahmanas should know how to clean. When I took Brahman Diksha, I was told Brahman means always cleaning. When I joined the temple in Melbourne, there was a devotee there, Puri. He just passed away before I got there, but he died in a car crash. He always used to make the comment that a Brahmana is known because they leave the place cleaner than when they found it. I'm not saying I'm a Brahmana, but whenever I stay anywhere, I clean the place when I leave, or before I leave. I wash all the bedding, make sure the bathroom's clean, make sure that I'm not leaving any service for someone else to do. Why should someone be cleaning up after me? Am I such an advanced devotee that that's all right? No, I'm not. Shouldn't have people. I mean, I think that kind of mentality of thinking that someone should be serving me and cleaning up after me. I don't agree with that. I'm the one who should be serving them. So it's not. Yeah, we need to be clean. We don't need, this is lack of faith. We don't offer anything which is not offered to Krishna first. After food has been cooked, no one should be offered any food stuff unless it's first offered to the deity. One should not deride the demigods before the deity. One should not show disrespect to a scripture teaching about the supremacy of the Lord. One should not introduce any opposing scripture. You know, this is also becoming quite common now. That some of the conclusions that are coming out in books, you know, that are being sold in ISKCON temples is just like wacky philosophy. One should not smoke marijuana or ganja. One should not take opium or similar toxins. So these are just some of the ideas of, you know, because you've raised the point of offences. I think that they're very important points to know. Okay. Any other points?
I hope we all get your whatever
Huh?
very important session today.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, I don't say anything different. The same as when I was here last year. I'm just saying the same things again and again and again. Because if you listen to Prabhupada's lectures, you read his books, he says the same things again and again and again and again. Teach them how to be clean. Teach them how to be brahmanas. Because that's what a brahmana means. And like, you know, if I mean, I don't want to get into specific details here, but, you know, like, I could go to any part in the deity department and I could show you many, many things that really need attention. And this should be our, this should be our endeavor. It's not like we just come, we do our service and we leave. Because in the act of doing your service, just like you go into the paraphernalia room, right? And you get your jewelry out, you get your clothes for the deity, you get the garlands out, right? You put the garlands on the tray or picking the tray up, and petals fall into the fridge. Petals fall on the floor. Do you pick them up? Oh no, that's for the cleaner. What kind of mentality is that? You know, that I should be served by another Vaishnava. That's the wrong, no, we need to take this the mentality that I want to serve the other Vaishnavas, not they should be serving me. Because when we have this idea that we should be served by other Vaishnavas, this is pride. It's okay with that other Vaishnavas want to come and serve us, that's fine. But it should be reciprocal, not just, oh yes, they should serve me because I'm so advanced. That's pride. And pride, as we hear, pride cometh before the fall. So we need to be very careful with that and try to cultivate these Vaishnava qualities. And we're reading somewhere recently, I can't remember, maybe it was in Paris, we were just doing class there, and we were just talking about all these qualities that are dear to Krishna. So when someone has pride, this is not very dear to Krishna at all. Humility is something that attracts Krishna. Just like, you know, I haven't had much to do with Swami Bhagavad Maharaj over the years. I've seen him a lot, you know, especially at the manor. But I've just been observing him the last 2 days, and I can see there's many nice qualities there. And one of the qualities I see is humility, you know, which is a very good quality to have as a Vaishnava. You know, like he was talking to someone in the temple room, and instead of staying seated on the speaker's asana, he gets down on the floor and sits on the same level, not thinking he's better. No, I should sit on the seat because I'm the sannyasi. That's dangerous. Dangerous to have pride. And so whenever we see pride within ourselves, we need to work on rooting that out and trying to become humble. And the best way to become humble is by serving devotees. And by associating with devotees. It's a very, very powerful way of cultivating humility. Anything else, or should I read some more? Braj Mahan. You got some controversial questions?
I have many.
Unlimited, right? Like yesterday. Unlimited questions.
Community, whole community questions.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's, you know, I'll get to these points, don't worry. Fire away.
Okay. So first question someone sent in was, Giriraj and Shalagram Shila's worship, is it possible for a Vaishnavi to perform worship for them? If not, what is the reason?
Generally with Shalagram, see, like Prabhupada, there's a number of places where he was talking in the mid to early 70s about introducing Shalagram worship into ISKCON. And he hadn't done it. But he was saying that when I see there's enough fixed up brahmanas, then I will introduce that. So one of the keys to doing the worship of the shalagram is to be steady in Brahminical practice. If one's experiencing menstruation, it's difficult. Because usually it should, like, you see this in a number of temples, it's the same person every day doing the worship. That's the ideal. If you have the same person every day doing the worship. And they need to be quite fixed in Brahminical practice and consciousness. Shalagram Shila worship is very, very effective at helping us overcome offenses. Sometimes you hear devotees say, "Oh no, don't worship Shalagram, heavy reactions." Nonsense. Any deity is heavy reactions if you do it the wrong way. Any deity, especially Radha Krishna. Especially Radha Krishna. You know, Radha Krishna is as Prabhupada said to Guru Grai, Radha Krishna worship is the ultimate pinnacle of deity worship, and there can be no neglect in terms of opulence and standards of worship. So, yeah, ladies can worship shalagrams, and we see it's there in the scriptures. Like sometimes devotees say, no, ladies can't worship shalagrams. Well, but I think Sanatana Goswami's got a different perspective, because he does mention that when the husband was sick or otherwise unavailable to do the worship, then the wife could do it. But you see, it's more an exception than the general practice. Not that they can't do it, but it's an exception. It's not the general practice.
And is it mentioned too, was that in home or was that in temple?
That's in a home environment. So that's more so the case in a temple environment, because the temple environment, the rules tend to be a bit stricter. In the home environment, the worship tends to be based around the needs of the family, but in the temple, it's based around the needs of the deity. But it's more the exception than the practice. Not to say they can't do it. To say that a Vaishnavi can't worship the shalagram is incorrect. But it's, you know, more an exception.
Same devotees asking about Mataji's covering their head in India versus in the West, like during worship and then just general times.
Do you want to cover your head or not? I bet that's a guy saying that, right?
Yeah. No, it's a lady asking.
Oh, okay. Because usually the guys, they say, oh, the lady should always cover the head. Why don't you try doing it? I mean, that drives me nuts having to pull the thing over the head all the time, you know? It's bad enough with the chadar when it falls down, you know? But to have to do that like every 5 minutes, oh my God, it drives me nuts.
Many Matajis wear bandanas for that reason, just to...
Yeah, if they want to wear it, they want to, just don't wear synthetic clothes on the altar. You know, just wear pure silk, pure cotton. You can't even get pure silk these days, it doesn't exist. So silk, cotton, jute, wool, that's it. Be careful with silk, it's highly flammable. Especially don't wear silk in the kitchen. Or if you're doing puja and stuff, avoid silk because, you know, I mean, there have been devotees whose clothes have caught fire on altars and they've been really badly burnt.
Toronto was the worst.
Huh?
Toronto.
Yeah, in Toronto, that's what I was thinking of. We also had a devotee in Poland. I think she was wearing a synthetic sari that we had low burners on the floor, and she walked past and just went up like that. And she had like 3rd-degree burns to something like 60 or 70% of her body. So, you know, be careful. Very I mean, I always wear silk because you can wear silks for... Sanatana Goswami says you can wear silk many times before washing. So it's kind of convenient. And it feels comfortable.
That happens to me, for example, when...
A little louder. You're so far away.
Sorry. Personally, it happens to me when I was doing the lamp with camphor. The camphor starts to melt.
Yeah.
And it's very dangerous because when you are doing the offering and moving, you have to try to don't move too much because falls and it's in flame.
Yeah.
So, oh my God,
You ever heard of napalm?
Yeah.
You ever heard of napalm? Yeah. It's like something they used to use during the war. It's a type of bomb which has this liquid in it that gets onto the skin and it sticks and it burns. Camphar's like that. And it really burns really badly. So yeah, you have to be careful when you're using a camphor lamp. Make sure you don't put too much camphor in there for one thing. And then when you're offering the lamp, just try to keep it flat. Yeah? I mean, I've had camphor sort of come out of the lamp and flow down along my arms and stuff like that. Really painful. Really, really painful. You know, so just be careful with the camphor. But, you know, it's like, you just have to be careful around flames. And this is one of the reasons why in ISKCON we don't allow children in the kitchen. We had an experience in New Govardhan. There was a young girl, she came into the kitchen, she pulled something off the stove. I mean, I had the experience, I got like a burn on my shoulder from when I was a child. I pulled a cup of boiling water and it just went sort of down the side of my face and on my shoulder. So you just have to be very careful, especially with children and especially with the cloth you're wearing. Don't wear, like a lot of devotees are habituated to wearing poly cotton stuff. No way, just get, this is pure wool. And if a flame falls on this, it'll smolder. It won't burn. Wool won't burn like that. And wool's also pure. It costs more, but it's much safer, and it's pure. Avoid wearing synthetics at all costs. They're not pure to start with, and they're dangerous.
Oh yeah, that's just in a case that the incident with the camper will happen, so immediately put it under the water, if caught in the fire.
Yeah, but if you put it in water, it will tend to blister, which is also quite painful.
So that's my question, what to do when it happens?
Ice is good.
Huh?
Ice?
No, that's even worse. That's worse. Things like butter, honey, things like that. Honey's good. Butter's good. Yeah, not water, not ice. Yeah. But if it's burning, just smother it with cloth to start with to stop it from burning, and then or if you get your clothes on fire, what's recommended is drop and roll. Just roll on the ground, or if someone's around, do you have fire blankets on the altar? I didn't see anything. What sort of extinguisher is it? No, what type of material?
Oh, we have two different. One is silver, one is red, but it's for two different things.
Different materials. So, but do you have training for the devotees? No. Well, what's the point of having it?
That's what we have to, like,
I mean, in Australia, by law, you're required to do training. In the kitchen and things like that, there's safety regulations and they have to do it. So I think it's worthwhile, like everyone who's in the Pujari department should be trained on how to use these things, because if there's a fire, like what happens, like you've got these curtains at the back of the altar, right? They're synthetic, they're like a polycotton or something like that. If they catch fire and all the altar's wood, what are you going to do? What's the use of that? And the altar itself is synthetic. That'll go up in a flash.
And also our curtains are quite close to
Huh?
the front curtains are quite close to the
Yeah, so you need training. Everyone should be trained on how to use the fire extinguishers. And when was the last time the fire extinguishers were checked?
They check everyone. They're checking regularly.
Huh?
We're checking those.
They check them regularly. Yeah, but does anyone know how to use them?
Not much.
Well, what's the point? Yeah? What's the point?
There are different types of fires.
Yeah, if I can just finish on this point thing. And also in the kitchen, do you have a fire blanket?
No.
You need a fire blanket. If a wok goes up, what are you going to do? You squirt it with a fire extinguisher, it's going to blow ghee all over the place. You put a fire blanket over it. And again, you need to be trained, because most people, when they get in those situations, because they don't know what to do, they freak out, they panic. And they'll get a bucket of water from the sink and throw a bucket of water on it. Ki jai. Really good stuff. You need to have regular training. And I'm sure the fire department would do that for you, right? Do they do that here?
I think so.
Yeah. They do it in Australia all the time. You ask the fire department, they'll come in, they'll train your people. You had your question, Mataji?
Yes. Well, I was going to say that there are different types of fires, like chemical. There are fires that are caused from electricity.
Yeah.
So there would be different types.
That's what I'm saying. There needs to be training, so you can identify what the fire is. Because you've got two fire extinguishers. Which one's which? Does anyone know? Oh, they're fire extinguishers. But if you don't know how to use them, if you take just like a regular water fire extinguisher and you squirt an electrical fire, you're dead. But you use a foam fire extinguisher, or if it's like like a petrochemical, that's a different type of fire. So you need to know, you need to have the right fire extinguishers, and you need to know how to use them. I mean, yeah, we're following a spiritual path, but you also have to be practical. You have to know, how to function in the world. Prabhupada, if you look at Prabhupada, he was a very practical person. We have to know how to function in this material world. And, you know, like, and also we see that if people, especially educated people, they come to the temple and they see we're all bumbling idiots, we can't sort of, you know, work our way out of the simplest of things, I'm not going to attract them to Krishna consciousness. But if they see that, you know, these people are organized, they're together, then people who are of that nature will also be attracted. You know, and Prabhupada wanted educated people to join the movement. He wanted, you know, intelligent people to join the movement because they're the people who can lead. So it's very important. Any other questions? Because he's got thousands.
Unlimited.
Huh?
Unlimited.
That's it.
Nothing's unlimited in this material world. Actually, Albert Einstein, he said an interesting thing. He said there's two things that are unlimited, the universe and human stupidity. But I'm not sure about the universe. Yeah. That's a good one, huh? A clever guy, Albert Einstein. Come on.
Number 2, how to deal with competition in roles. We are all trying to worship the deities, but our human propensities get in the way sometimes. What is the best way to move beyond this for the ultimate goal of Krishna's pleasure?
But it depends what the motive for the competition is, the competitiveness is. If the competitiveness is to serve Krishna, that's good. It's to encourage. Prabhupada encouraged that sort of competitiveness. But if it's to promote ourselves, that's an anatta. So you have to, the devotee has to analyze what is the motive for this competitiveness. If they're trying to please Krishna, that's fine. The gopis would also try to do that.
Number 3, what to do when cleanliness, organization, or maintenance standards don't necessarily align with those around you, or support/facility isn't provided to achieve this.
Ask the head pujaris, where's the bucket and the cleaning cloth? Get in there and do it. It's okay to talk about it, but you need to get in there and do it.
I think that's her question. That's exactly her question, is that what if you see that whatever the situation or the organization or the leader, it sounds like that's what she's saying. When that's not in place or they're not facilitating.
Just get there and do it and tolerate. Just do the service the best you can. Understand the standards that need to be implemented. Do it the best you can. And if others aren't up to the standard, just tolerate their shortcomings, and just, you know, try to encourage them as best you can. I mean, you know, who was it? Mahatma Gandhi. He said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." So if you want to see it done differently, you do differently. But don't get self-righteous about it and say, "Well, look, I'm cleaning so well, but look what you're doing." That's not helpful.
So, in context to that, Prabhu,
Why are you sitting all the way over there? Everyone's over here.
I was just having discomfort, to be honest with you, because my leg was like
But none of the walls need to be held up. They're all quite strong.
No, it was me. It was like giving me support, nothing else. So, I'm sorry, first of all, I said.
That's okay. I'm just teasing.
So, when you say that, now I lost it, probably. When you said right now, first one was the competition, that is good. And now you said,
If it's for Krishna.
Yeah, it's for Krishna.
Only if it's for Krishna.
But we are doing everything over here for Krishna. But when we think...
Really? You sure of that? I mean, no, this is a genuine question, you know. We might say, I'm doing 100% for Krishna, but if we're introspective, we might see, actually, I don't do very much for Krishna at all.
That's what I'm coming, that was my thing, that we say that we are doing it for Krishna, but now when it comes like you feel that it was not for Krishna, it was for you.
Yeah.
You wanted to do it that way. So is that real competition, or how do you explain that then?
I mean,
take it.
We have our individual natures, and it's fine to express that nature in service to Krishna, but what's the motive? You know, like doing something different, that's not a problem. Just like, you know, some people might cook halva one way, some people might cook halva a little bit differently. But if you're doing it for the pleasure of Krishna, that's okay. If you're doing it to try to bring attention to yourself so you can be glorified as a great cook or a great dresser or something like that, that's a problem. If the end goal is the satisfaction of Krishna, that's fine. And there needs to be room for individual expression. There has to be, because we're all individuals. And interestingly, in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami, he talks about how each individual living entity is unique. And Krishna has a unique quality to interact with each individual living entity individually. Yeah? So we're all individual, and Krishna has a quality for each one of us. And he interacts with us in a special way. So it's not like we're trying to suppress individuality, but we're trying to dovetail that individuality in the service of God. And that way that individuality is perfect. If that individuality is just me doing my own thing so I can be glorified, that's an anartha. Does that cover your question? Okay. It's like being at a tennis match. That's okay, don't worry. No, you can stay there.
I have a question about that. Right now, in these times, the social media has a very important part in the life of the devotees too. And what is good when the devotees put everything in the social media about the service in the altar? How the devotees can, I don't know, I feel sometimes it's like a show. I'm a good pujari, I'm dressed very nice, but it's correct to put everything in the social, in Facebook, Instagram.
But then, like, okay, putting photos up on social media is fine. But putting photos up on social media about me serving Krishna, I'm not so convinced of that one, because usually it's to draw attention to the self. And also just on the topic of social media photos and stuff like that, one of the things I find incredible is people will put up photos of the deities that have been photoshopped, i.e. Radharani with teeth. Yeah? And then people post, oh, Radharani's so beautiful. And I'm thinking, oh my God, so offensive. You know, they change the smile, or, you know, I just think it's really offensive that they're actually thinking that they can make Radharani look better. You know, it's like it's just like, you know, if someone thought, well, Prabhupada would look nice with a moustache on or something like that, you know, it's like, that's just too weird. You know, exactly. It's just, we're just allowing our kind of creative ability to go amok. Well, it's like, what's his name? Mukunda Goswami, he said, is diversity, because you know, we talk about unity in universities, is diversity gone amok. And that's what it is. It's like, we're just letting our creative ideas just go too far. And that's why, you know, human life means regulation. Human life means restraint. It's just like, you know, we have Grihastha Ashram. Grihastha Ashram is a license for sex. That's not the only part of it, but that's, you know, one aspect of it. So it means that we can have sex under regulation. Not that we just, you know, wantonly engage in sex life, because that will take us away from Krishna consciousness. It means every aspect of human life is regulated by the rules and regulations of devotional service. And you know, same with when we're doing deity worship, when we're posting photos on social media, like, you know, we have our social media channels in ISKCON Deity Worship Ministry, like our Facebook page, etc. And you know, there's guidelines on what we'll post and what we won't post. And if devotees are doing, you know, like dressing the deities up in strange ways, we won't post it. Because what I find is if you post things that are like acceptable means, devotees start to subconsciously understand what's acceptable. As soon as you start to post weird things, and it's on, you know, because it's an official ISKCON Deity Worship Ministry channel, they think, oh, this is bona fide. And so then rather than being, you know, sort of, that's a very nice looking garland you've made there. Very nice. Rather than being part of the problem, we become part of the solution. And that's what the ministry needs to do, is promote what is appropriate. Yeah, so you've got to be careful what you post on social media. Social media can be a very useful tool in Krishna's service. It can also be a scourge. It can really create problems. Really create problems, because people just, you know, there's no filter. especially these days, with these things, they put practically anything up on social media now. People being shot, killed.
People live in the social media, especially the young generation.
Sorry?
The friends, the kids, and the teenagers. Right now, their life is in social media.
Well, if you don't like it, move to Australia. They're changing that. Under 16, they're going to make it really restrictive on what they can do on social media, because they've got so many reports from psychologists and sociologists and stuff about the damage it's causing to children. And even adults, they get so messed up because their whole world experiences through their social media account, which is just like trying to, live your life based on what you watch on television. I mean, I remember growing up watching, what was it called, the Roadrunner cartoon? So violent. Like this coyote is trying to catch this roadrunner. He comes up with all these like schemes, and one of the schemes I remember, he like puts this, an anvil up on a cliff, and like the roadrunner's supposed to run past and trip the wire, and the anvil's supposed to fall on him. But he's going so fast that it causes the anvil to sort of get stuck there. And the coyote comes and he looks at him, pulling, and all of a sudden the anvil falls on him and he crashes him. And he gets it back up and he's all sort of spinning and that. But it just promotes violence. And social media just promotes all these artificial kind of understandings of how to live life and how to interact with people and stuff like that. It's just not a healthy environment at all. But for preaching, it's very good. We can actually attract people to Krishna consciousness through social media. We can inspire people in devotional service through social media. So if it's used it's just like, you take a scalpel, right? In the hands of a doctor, the scalpel is a good thing. In the hands of a criminal, the scalpel is a dangerous thing. So anything that's been...
You always said the intention is very important.
Yeah, it's really important, the intention. And like, if we're using social media to glorify ourselves, we'll get messed up. Use it to glorify Krishna. Anything else? Yeah. Raghalinda?
Sorry, so going back to the do's and don'ts and the offenses, I personally have had to work at hospitals, and sometimes it's inevitable to see a dead body. So how long after you see a dead body can you come back to the temple?
Have a shower, you'll be fine. I mean, I do last rites for people sometimes. That involves washing the body with ghee and things like that. And it's just, I mean, it's not the most pleasant service I've ever done, but it's something I just want to do for Vaishnavas, so I can, try and, assist their journey back to Godhead. And so usually what I do is I'll go down to the sea, because we live quite close to the coast. I don't know if is the sea here? You can bathe in the sea here? Yeah, I
would take a shower after I got home.
Yeah, but anyhow, so we live near the Gold Coast, which is one of the premier tourist spots in Australia, and so I just walk into the sea with all my clothes on and stuff like that, and then come out, and that's good enough.
I remember Janani Prabhu and Mike were also said, somebody was asking him this question, and he was like, well, do you identify yourself with the body, or do you identify as the servant of Krishna? And if you want to identify yourself with the body of this family member or something like that, then take the time that your family tells you need to take to be away from serving the Lord, or if you want to continue with your service, like you said, take a shower.
Yeah, because the service is purifying. Much more so than identifying with their body. And like one of the points we were talking about before about purity, offenses to lack of purity, is in the scriptures there's rules mentioned about the period of contamination you need to observe after someone in the family dies. And it's different for Vaishnavas, Kshatriyas, Brahmanas and Shudras, the different duration of time. However, the Manu Samhita mentions that if one's engaged in pujas or worship of the Lord, these rules don't apply. So it means like someone close to you can die in the family, then you don't need to follow any strict rules for purity. Of course, if you're affected by lamentation, then you shouldn't be worshiping the deity. Like sometimes you'll see people who haven't, because like one of the fundamental tenets that's spoken in the Bhagavad Gita, right in the second chapter, in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, you're not the body, you're a spirit soul. Yet you'll see, like, like someone dies in a car crash, people see it, they're traumatized. They're just completely traumatized. I remember years ago, we were in Sydney, and there was the Rath Yatra. This old Indian lady, she came and she just about to they pulled the cart just to get it started, and she threw herself under the wheel, and the wheel ran over the head, and it was just like blood just everywhere like that. I was like, okay, that's pretty far out. But it wasn't like, I wasn't traumatized by it, I wasn't disturbed. So, I mean, it's messy. It's definitely messy, and it's just like, it's kind of a bit like roadkill, it's like, it's really messy and it's unpleasant, but you're not the body, you're a spirit soul. But if you, as Sharanista Prabhu was saying, if you identify with the body, then yes, you are contaminated. So, a bit gruesome, but you do see this stuff all the time.
But you're not touching the deities right away, right? Like you have taken bath and after a few days, then you come back to seva.
No, straight away.
You can?
Yeah, straight away. If you don't, I mean, obviously, we're not at at least I can talk for myself, I'm not at the point now where I can categorically say I do not identify with my body. But I appreciate that I'm not the body. I appreciate, I understand the philosophy to some extent. So intellectually, at least I accept I'm not the body. In terms of realization, that's something different. You had a question?
Yeah. In continuation to what you were saying, this is in relation to home worship. If there's a death in the family, in India it's a very generalized practice that whether you're lamenting or not, you close the altar. You don't worship the deities for a few days, offer dry bhoga, leave it in there. How much as devotees, and if you have Radha Krishna deities at home?
But aren't you glad you're not Indian?
I've never supported that, and that's why I'm confused.
But the thing is,
where
Jivera Swarupahoy Krishna, it's in the Shastra.
Okay.
But Jivera Swarupahoy Krishna Nitidas, you are an eternal servant of Krishna. You're not this body. If you identify with the body, follow the rules. But if you understand, at least intellectually, that you're not the body, and you're not affected by this death, with lamentation, you don't need to follow the rules. Just serve Krishna, because that is purifying. Because by engaging in devotional service, this is facilitating you giving up the bodily concept of life. I mean, don't criticize people for following it. If that's what they want to follow, fine. But we don't follow it.
No, yeah, I'm confused because some senior devotees who are senior devotees, and they were, women were like, yeah, that's what we do in ISKCON too, and I'm like,
yeah, but it's not what we do in ISKCON.
Right.
It's a Hindu custom.
Right.
It's Hindu tradition. It's not what we do in ISKCON. The same with eclipse. Some people are of the conviction that when you have an eclipse, you stop the deity worship. But that's Seva Aparad. Prabhupada was very clear, there's no reason for stopping unless there's some natural catastrophe, like in Los Angeles a few years ago, there was an earthquake, they took the deities out and they laid them down in mattresses in a bus, just to protect the deities. So that interrupted the worship. But generally speaking, you never interrupt the worship for any reason. So, actually ministry put out a paper last year or the year before about what to do during eclipses. Basically, the conclusion is don't do anything different. Just keep going on with the worship. Because the deity is not contaminated, and if you're engaged in service, you're not contaminated. Just continue with the worship. But in Hindu society, these things are really prominent. But we're not Hindus. We're Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Sometimes you'll see that Prabhupada would identify with Hindus for the sake of preaching, but in the ultimate issue, he would identify us as Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So we don't necessarily follow Hindu traditions. I mean, when it's convenient, then Prabhupada would identify with these things, but generally not.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I serve at the Bhakti Center in Manhattan, and during eclipse, we do, suppose it's like an afternoon time, we change the timing. We change the timing of the worship and close the altar during eclipse.
No, I wouldn't do that. Tell Vasudev to read our paper on eclipses. Or he can email me and I'll send it to him. No change. You shouldn't change the time. That's Seva Aparad. One time in Vrindavan, Prabhupada told the pujaris there that not to change anything, but if the outside people criticize, then just close the temple to the outsiders. But everything should go on as per normal. And this is an instruction he gave him in several different times. We interviewed a lot of people, who had experience with Prabhupada, Shruti, Kirti, Hari, Sori, all these different devotees, and they said things business as usual. And actually, there are references in our paper on it where Prabhupada gave sannyas diksha to someone during an eclipse. Apparently it's the best time to give sannyas diksha. So it's actually, and we see that Lord Chaitanya, when he was born, that was during an eclipse. I mean, what could be more auspicious than that? And all the devotees are down in the Ganga chanting. It just depends what scripture you read, because some scriptures indicate that eclipses are very auspicious times. And it doesn't matter what's going on in the world, it's always an auspicious time to worship God, because this brings about all auspicity. Yes, Anantacharya Ji from Blighty.
Just a question about protecting the deities. Okay, we don't really, in New York, we don't have so many earthquakes, although
Sorry?
we did have one, a little one, last time I came. Trauma. But in terms of protecting the devotees, like say it's a temple, okay, it sounds a bit wild, but it does happen, can happen, maybe could happen in the future. But the temple was under attack or an earthquake or something like that. Should every temple have some kind of strategy of protecting the deities?
Yeah, I mean, we've encouraged different temples to have like carry cases for the deities and stuff like that, just in case. Especially, likely it's more of a problem in a city. Just like in London a few years ago, there was riots. Fortunately, those riots weren't in central London; they were more up in northern London. But it can get, like places like Brixton, and these people are just quite unruly. Or there's certain suburbs here, like we were hearing, where was it the other day? It might have been Maharaj was talking last night about when Prabhupada moved into the Bowery, a very difficult area. So certain parts of New York, for instance, like here. I mean, I remember the first time I came here, it was like, whoa, this is a pretty seedy area, But it's changed, It's changed. But you always need to be mindful of the risk and make appropriate arrangements. And things like having metal gates in front of the deities and keeping gates locked when there's not devotees around and stuff like that. That's appropriate.
That's like it's like a common, sometimes there's a misunderstanding that like, well, Brahmanas means, they're always shanti and they don't, take action, this kind of thing. They're like the ones that will be always peaceful, but it seems like, from what I've understood from your teaching also, Prabhupada's example, like he told the devotees in Vrindavan after that whole incident, we should get firearms, and we should like kill people if you need to, if it's completely necessary. if people are coming and trying to destroy the deities or attack the devotees, you need to take appropriate measures.
Yeah, but if they're attacking you, you tolerate.
That was the other side.
That's the hard part. Yeah, I mean, you need to take appropriate steps to see that Krishna is protected, to see the devotees protected. And when in Mayapur, I think it was, I can't remember what it was, maybe it was Bhavananda or something, he shot a firearm to protect the devotees, and Prabhupada, was happy that he did that. It wasn't like he was getting on his case, but it takes a degree of maturity to be able to, training also, because if we're in the mode of passion, and we tend to react to situations, then if you have a firearm, that can lead to all sorts of problems. But someone who's trained on how to use a weapon and is cool-headed, that's fine. But not just people who are gun happy. I mean, I've come across lots of devotees like that who are just gun happy. I mean, this is one of the things I find challenging about coming to America. I had an experience on a Greyhound bus a number of years ago. I was traveling Greyhound. We were heading down from Denver down to Las Vegas. And, I was sitting up the back reading Bhagavad Gita. It was just, how do you sleep on a bus, I had the light on. And there's this fellow in front of me. He asked me if I could turn the light off. I said, if you don't mind, I'd rather read. Pulls out a knife and turned off the light. Okay. It's like, in Australia, you just do not have experiences like that. No one pulls a gun on anyone because no one has guns. They're illegal. You can't have them. Whereas here, so many devotees I know, Hunks has got a gun. It's like, so many devotees I know have got guns. And it's just, for me, that's just such a foreign thing. Farmers are allowed to have guns, because they have to have guns to protect them from sheep, from foxes and things like that. But it's, policemen have guns. But it's like, so the whole idea of someone attacking a temple with a gun in Australia just doesn't really come into it because they don't have guns. But here, you have to make appropriate arrangements to protect the deities, protect the devotees. Having the door there with a buzzer on it is also part of that. Because if you had the guy at the reception sitting there with a gun, I don't know how well that'd work. Especially you get some like hot-blooded, young devotee on the door.
That's also like a number one failure, they say, in home defense is you keep your weapon at the door, and then you only realize it's an invader after they've come in. So then your weapon is behind them. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, better to figure out a better way to deal with it. Yeah, but guns are not a good thing.
I had a question about, it's long, but basically the main topic of it is there's this like consciousness sometimes that we have to adjust standards or like details of how we do things according to, because we're influenced by the donors or the Hindu
Influenced by what?
donors.
Okay.
And Hindu congregation, that kind of thing. Under feel that they'll like criticize or they won't donate, so then, sometimes adjustments will be made, like we'll allow, we've been very strict on this in the past couple of years not to do this, but some temples like they'll allow non-Brahmins to bathe the deities, or
So how much can you pay to become a Brahmana?
right, you can.
How much does it cost? $100? Pretty cheap.
Maybe 5,000.
That's pretty cheap. If you follow the system that's established in ISKCON, right? How long does it take? If you follow all the rules, how long does it take before you become Brahmin?
Minimum a year and a half.
18 months. Yeah? And that's all it's worth, $5,000? No, you can't buy it. It's something you can't buy. You've got to chant, your japa, you've got to follow regular principles, you've got to prove yourself to be steady. Just to pay money to worship the deity, that's just turning the whole thing into a material process rather than a transcendental process. It's become material because you can pay for it. That means you've got money, you can buy your way back to Godhead. It doesn't work like that. It's based on one's surrender to Krishna. So if someone wants to bathe it, it's just like, this whole thing with showing Radharani's lotus feet on Radhastami. Become Pujari, you can see her lotus feet every day. It's just, Prabhupada said they should never be shown. And never, if you look it up in the dictionary, means not at any time. So,
They do it in Vrindavan always.
They do so many things in Vrindavan. Does that mean we should follow it? I could tell you some stories about Vrindavan, which makes your ponytail stand on its end. Just because they're doing it there doesn't mean we should follow it. We follow our founder Acharya, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. What did he say about the matter? He said Radharani's lotus feet should never be shown. That means not on Radhastami, not on Gopastami, never. I submitted a position paper to the GBC and they approved it because they accepted this point that Radharani's feet should never be seen. And sometimes devotees are trying to work it around this way or that way, but Prabhupada said never.
That brings up like the controversies and then, they are doing, why we are not, then it's all mess.
But that's not a controversy. They're not following, and we are. Yeah. It's a simple thing. If you want to understand the process back to the spiritual world, what do? You just go consult this one, to get opinions here, there, and everywhere. What do?
What's in the Shastra, what the Acharyas?
Guru Sadhu Shastra. That's it. That's our checks and balances. What's stated in the Shastra? What did our founder Acharya say? What did the previous Acharyas say? Yeah? That's what we do. We follow them. And just because they're doing it in this temple or that temple, that doesn't really matter. What did our Acharya tell us to do? You know, he sets the mood of worship for ISKCON, so we follow what he says, and we're assured of success. But if we make it up, there's no guarantee we're going back to the spiritual world.
This thought just came to me that Prabhupada, he taught by example, and he did not compromise. There was this.
Sometimes he did.
He did?
Yeah. Not on the principles of bhakti, though. Just on details.
Okay. Well, there was I was listening to a lecture.
I'll just give you an example of a detail. Sorry to interrupt. About devotees going out on Sankirtan. Initially, he was quite adamant that they should wear devotional clothing and tilak. But then at one point, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was explaining to him that we could significantly increase the book distribution if you allow the devotees to wear non-devotional clothing. And he said, okay, but they must always act like perfect ladies and gentlemen. So, you know, Prabhupada did adjust some of the details in order to increase the application of the principle, i.e. that people are devotees, we're all servants of Krishna, and by following this process of bhakti, we'll come to understand that. By getting one of Prabhupada's books and reading Prabhupada's books, they'll come to understand this principle that every living entity is a part and parcel of Krishna. So you wanted to say something else?
Well, it was a lecture that I was listening. I don't remember all. What stands out about it is that Prabhupada was sitting on a
Vyasa-san.
Vyasa-san. And there was another guru, and I don't know if you've heard of this, where he was asked to step down to let this other person sit. But who this person was, I think it was about money that he was going to be either donating. I don't want to, please correct me, I don't want to misinform. But it had to do with money.
Yeah.
But Prabhupada it didn't matter. It's like he stayed on the Vyasa, where he was sitting. He was asked, he didn't step down. I don't know if anyone heard of this.
Yeah, I think I know the story.
Okay. And, yeah. And
Yeah, Prabhupada just wasn't into giving materialistic people prominence.
Okay. Even though they were going to be the one to...
Yeah, but he wasn't into giving them prominence. Yeah, he wouldn't take money just to please people, you know, or have to sacrifice his principles to please someone because they're giving money.
Whatever that person promised to do, you know, it didn't matter.
And one time, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was giving class, and this gentleman was talking to somebody else in his class, and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he stopped him and he said, "You think you've purchased me by your donation?" So he's very, very straightforward. You know, don't think just because you give me a donation you control me. You're giving a donation to the service of Krishna. But some people, they're proud of their money, they're proud of the things they can do with their money, so they think they purchase people by their donations. Yes?
Going back to not showing Srimati Radharani's feet, I understood last year when you were here that Govinda should always wear shirt
Yeah.
in the West.
That's what Prabhupada said. On three occasions I'm aware of, I think there may even be more. He said it, a letter he wrote to the devotees in Los Angeles, a letter he wrote to the devotees in Washington, D.C., and also he said it at either New Vrindavan or Bhaktivedanta Manor, I can't remember, one of those two places, that the deity should not go without a shirt. Very clear.
Even in the summer.
It's not hot here. Maybe for you it's hot. Go to Vrindavan in the middle of summer.
I know. I
That's hot.
totally agree.
That's hot.
But I have seen,
Yeah.
Darshan with no shirt.
Yeah, but I'm just I'm not trying to judge that. All I'm saying is what Prabhupada gave as a standard was the deity should not be without a shirt in your Western countries. And different devotees are given different ideas why he said that. Okay, but this is what Prabhupada said, and he didn't explain it. So that's what we follow. Because it's, like I mean, I've been in New York in the middle of summer. I used to live in Washington, D.C. You know, it gets steamy there, but compared to Vrindavan, it's a mild sort of spring day. You know, Vrindavan gets hot. You know, 50 degrees plus. You know, during the middle of the day, that's hot.
We were unclear on some of those letters because in at least two of them, Prabhupada says specifically Lord Chaitanya.
No, one he says Lord Chaitanya, one he says the deity.
He says the deity.
Yeah. The one to Los Angeles he said Lord Chaitanya, and the one to DC he said the deity.
It's also in Chaitanya.
Sorry?
It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It also says Gauranga never buried
In the West.
at the West.
Yeah.
We have another question. How to balance taking in feedback without being micromanaged so service is then not simple to go about or without becoming frustrated or disheartened?
With straw in teeth.
I guess to elaborate more on that, I think she's saying that, like, you know, everyone has an opinion, but then you also don't want to, like, you do something, and then everyone will be like, oh, so it's like you just, okay, I'll just do nothing. I think it's kind of.
I mean, the thing is, like, generally we take instructions from authorities. But I remember one time having an interaction with Satsvarup Maharaj. It's a long time ago, so I can't remember the detail of it, but one of the things that struck me was at that time was how humble he was, and that he wasn't thinking he was in a big position, even though like he was one of like the 11 original acharyas in ISKCON, so to speak. Yet still he was humble. And so this is our you know, like Lord Chaitanya said, this mantra, we should wear it around our neck, this Trinada Pisuni Chinata Tororiva. And of course what we see nowadays is devotees wear a necklace with this on it, but they don't practice it. And that's what it means to wear it around your neck, is you practice it. You practice becoming humble like the grass. You look at the grass, people trample on the grass, and the grass never protests. And the tree is so tolerant. It's you know, these trees outside, you know, in the blazing summer, in the middle of winter, they just stand there, they tolerate it. That's what we need to become like. Because when we become like that, Kirtaniya Sadahari, we'll be able to chant the holy name constantly. And we never respect others, and never expect any respect, and we're willing to offer all respect to others. This is our aspiration, is to become like this. So, you know, ideally, if devotees are, you know, correcting you on this and correcting you on like that, then yes, Prabhu, thank you, Prabhu. I had the experience just recently somewhere like that, and I pointed out something to someone, and they said, oh, thank you very much for correcting me. That's a good attitude to have, isn't it? But I shouldn't think, oh yes, that's right, because I'm the know-it-all kind of person who tells everyone how to, you know, practice deity worship. But you know, like to do it as a service and to accept it as a service. We need to cultivate Vaishnava qualities. And humility is a very important, as I was mentioning the other day in a class I was giving somewhere, that Prabhupada mentions in a purport in the 13th chapter of the Gita, without humility it's not possible to have knowledge. And without knowledge, you're not going to progress in devotional service, because you need to understand the process of bhakti. Yeah?
When is it suggested to retire dresses or jewelry or other paraphernalia instead of repairing?
When it's damaged. Yeah, I mean, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why do you want to put damaged clothes on him? Why do you want to offer damaged jewelry to him? I don't know if you've ever been into a fancy restaurant or like a high-class hotel or anything like that. Everything there. Well, the Queen of England, there was a video they put out years ago. I've got a copy of it at home. I can't remember, it was one of her anniversaries. And it was showing, you probably would have seen this, Ananta, it was showing how she was served throughout the day. And that's deity worship. It's just so opulent and everything's so regular. They even have this system in Buckingham Palace, which is one of her main homes, is there's lights in the side corridors, right? And I'm not sure what colours it is, but on a certain colour, it means that the Queen is walking through the corridor. You don't go into the corridor. When it's the other colour, you're allowed to go into the corridor. And so this whole concept of awe and reverence is really there in the royalty in England. And like you see that everything's being offered to the Queen is in pristine condition. All the silverware, all the whatever it is, it's all in pristine condition. So it's so common, you'll see on our altars, that the silver cups look like someone's been playing football with them or something. They're all dented and bashed up. You know, and the paraphernalia is like welded together. No, this is Krishna. This is not some kind of like, you know, low-class kind of landlord or something, you know, that just scrapes together whatever he can do to... No, this is the Supreme Personality of God. Everything should be pristine. Yeah.
In that case, when, well, you know, we try to retire some dresses for Radha Govinda because have a very big outfit. But sometimes some dresses are old, but are in good condition.
That's fine.
So we can say,
I mean,
doesn't matter the
yeah.
color of the dress.
Yeah. There's a temple in India in a place called Guruvayo. They offer a new outfit to the deity every single day. Huh? He never wears the same thing twice. That's a nice standard to have. So you don't need to have a dress room for all the old dresses because he doesn't wear them again. But that would be kind of, you know, $2,000-3,000 a day. Yeah.
What do they do with them as they use them?
Distribute as Mahaprasad. But the deity is smaller, and the dresses aren't as opulent as ones we offer in ISKCON. But you know, the point there is that when it comes to offering opulence to Krishna, there's no limit. There's an interesting story I remember hearing years ago. One of the priests in Puri had a friend who's a merchant. And this merchant was quite proud of his wealth, and he was teasing the priest. He said, you know, you tell your Jagannath, there's nothing I can't offer him. Anything he wants, I'll offer. You know, he's very proud of how much wealth. And so the priest agrees. And so he has a dream at night, and then Jagannath comes to the priest and he says, you tell your merchant friend, I want him to offer me pan. And the priest is saying, but my lord, he's a wealthy merchant. Pan's nothing for him. He says, no, not ordinary pan. I want pan which has got crushed pearls in it. And then the priest says to Jagannath, he says, but my lord, he's trading in pearls all the time. He's got so many pearls. No, not any pearl. I want the pearl that grows in the head of an elephant. And so he said, okay, he understood. Because apparently what happens is on a particular nakshatra, if at night time it rains on the head of an elephant, then a pearl will form in the head of an elephant. This is very rare, very, very rare. So then he went and had this conversation with this wealthy merchant, and he explained to him what Jagannath had said. And he said, well, Jagannath, he wants pan. He said, tell him to ask me for something, you know, rare, important, valuable. He said, no, he wants a pan which has the crushed pearls in it. And the merchant says, but you know, I've got so many pearls. This is nothing. No, but not any pearl. He wants the pearl that comes from the head of an elephant. And so the merchant, he understood how this forms in the head of an elephant. He realized he was defeated because he would have to kill thousands of elephants to find this pearl. You know, so there's no limit to the opulence you can offer to Krishna. No limit. Yeah? Anything else? Yeah.
A lot of times we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's deity. Sometimes there's a peacock feather offered and there's no peacock feather offered. So what according to you is...
Well, don't worry about it according to me. What did Prabhupada say? That's what's important.
I didn't say anything about it necessarily.
In some places he did. You know,
Like
he said, you know, if devotees are interested to learn more about this, they should read such and such Vilas of the Hari Bhakti Vilas. Like the list of 64 items we follow is from the 11th Vilas. But you know, it's not. You know, Prabhupada didn't emphasize it. He didn't really put, you know, a lot of saying, no, we have to follow this very strictly, because it seems Prabhupada's made different comments in different places, but it seems like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was saying this was a response to the smartas who were very prominent in India at the time, and not that necessarily we should be following every single, because we couldn't. That's just the fact of it. We couldn't follow the Hari Bhakti Vilas. So better we just follow our acharyas, you know, especially Srila Prabhupada. He's a founder acharya. And because it's described that when, you know, at the point of initiation, the Diksha Guru, he gives tapa, pundra, you know, the tilak markings on the body, stuff like that. He gives the method of worship, he gives the mantra, and he gives the Prabhupada's instructions. We should follow Prabhupada's instructions because he's the founder acharya. He's given the method of worship for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And, you know, like, if there are things that, you know, that he didn't give instruction on, then there may be some room for interpretation based on, you know, the instructions of our acharyas, based on what they're doing in other Gaudiya Sampradayas. But certainly if Prabhupada gave a specific instruction, i.e., don't show Radharani's lotus feet, we should follow that. And, you know, things like, you look at, it's become common over the last few years, how, especially during the, what do they call it, the Bhishma Panchaka, the last 5 days of Kartik, they dress up the deities in all sorts of like far out things, you know, like putting masks on deities and stuff like that, you know. This sort of stuff, you know, it wasn't given by acharyas. It's not practicing Gaudiya Vaishnavism anywhere. You know, there is one temple in Vrindavan, which is a Mahaprabhu temple, and that temple is run by the Radha Raman temple. But you know, that's a temple that Padmanabha Goswami's father, Vishwambara Goswami, was given by an aging sadhu. And so they just follow the practices that were there from when the deity was established, you know, with the deities coming up and the deities, the arms up, arms down thing. You might have seen it. But actually it's not arms up, arms down. They just cover the down arms with each other. You know, they're still there. And so they put these up arms, you know. It's not like his arms move. So that wasn't some worship they instituted. That was just already going on when they were given the temple. But generally you'll see, not generally, you'll always see, in Gaudiya temples you won't see them modifying the form of the Lord. But this has started within ISKCON in the last, say, 10 or 15 years, and now you'll see that other branches of the Gaudiya Sampradaya are also doing things like that. But there's no praman within Gaudiya Vaishnavism that establishes that.
Like for example, dressing up Krishna Balaram.
Yeah, it's speculation, complete speculation. You know, it's like everything we do within our practice of bhakti needs to have a basis in Guru Sada and Shastra, otherwise it's unauthorized.
Is there anything about the Kushalagram can be understood to serve the function of different?
Yeah.
Like person? So what in the case of?
So you're painting green on Ram Navami?
Yeah, or like put a bow and arrow. Or
yeah, but you can offer him bows and arrows, but you don't put arms on him.
right. You don't modify his form.
Yeah, we put a resolution in 2 years ago, and we got it passed by the GBC about changing the form of the deity. Like sometimes you'll see they'll dress the deities so they look like they're sitting down, but they're not sitting down; they're standing. You know, where do we get off thinking that we've got the adhikar to mess with Krishna? You know, if Krishna wants to sit down, he'll do it. He's done it. You know, he did it. Tota Gopinath did it. You know, why do we think we have the right to change Krishna's form? You know, if Krishna wants to, if Krishna's manifested as a shalagram and he decides he wants to manifest as a deity for his devotee, he'll do it. Krishna doesn't have limitations like that. But what gives us this concept that we have the adhikar to modify the appearance of the deity? You know, if Krishna, if you have Krishna Balaram there and they want to appear as Ram and Lakshman, they'll do it. But don't go changing the appearance of the deity. That's just speculation.
So for Chaturdashi, you are not making shalagram look like Nrsimha. You can do that.
See, generally what happens with the shalagram is you worship the shalagram as your Devata, but it's not like one week is this, one next week is that. You're not changing them all the time. Like the shalagram you have on the altar here, you worship him as Govinda Dev. Yeah? But it's not like you're constantly changing them. You know? What you can do in some circumstances, you can have what they call dioramas, which are usually, you make them out of fiberglass or mud or whatever like that. And they just have them for the period of the festival. But not, like in some temples, what they've taken to is that they're dressing the deity up in certain avatars. Like I saw one, because I did a whole presentation at the GBC on it and gave them an information pack. And they had photos there where there was a deity of Krishna, and on the Nrsimha Chaturdashi, they put this whole kind of cardboard form of Nrsimhadev in front of Krishna. But where was the deity? And they're worshipping the cardboard form. It's just a piece of cardboard. How did that cardboard become Krishna? I mean, of course, we understand it's all an expansion of Krishna's energy, but how did that cardboard become a worshipable deity? It's just a speculation.
With the small Radha Krishna, right? With the
Big. Big Krishna deity, and Radharani standing next to Nrsimhadev. I don't think that's quite right.
That's a problem.
Yeah, I don't think that's quite right.
But I have a question. I remember probably was this year in Mayapur, the Chota deity, Radha Krishna was with a mask like Nrsimhadev. I remember.
Yeah, so hopefully they're not going to do that anymore. We're trying to stop all that stuff because it's a concoction.
Yeah, because the point is the big temples in India.
Exactly.
That they are the example for the rest of the
Yeah.
temples. And
Yeah.
to be honest, in Mayapur and Vrindavan, they always show the Radharani's feet.
I know, but I'm working on it.
So we are
But also there's a few senior devotees, and I won't say the names because I don't want them getting pressured at all. But they're also on the same page because they said that Prabhupada never allowed showing Radharani's lotus feet. He never did. Even for the artists, like he wrote to one of the artists, he says you can continue not showing Radharani's lotus feet.
Yeah, because we see a lot of temples around the world are doing the same.
No, but I mean, not as much. It's definitely backed off a lot because since we pushed that paper, we've been pushing the temples not to do it. And like I say in Vrindavan, there's a number of senior devotees who had direct experience of Prabhupada, and they said that Prabhupada never approved of this, and so we're still working on it. And you just have to be patient. It does get there sometimes. Sometimes it takes a while, and like in this service, I experience a lot of frustration because temples, they're not willing to accept Prabhupada's. It really gets down to it's not about me. It can't be about me because I'm just a servant. It's about what did our founder Acharya say about this. This is what we should understand, and let's work to following Prabhupada's instructions. But unfortunately, it gets into the personality stuff, and sometimes I'm kind of like a little bit perplexed on how to deal with this sort of stuff and how to move the conversation forward in a Vaishnava manner, so we keep the respect we have for each other without creating disturbance.
Yeah, that is so true because that really disturbs, and you think you can do that too. And this is how it's going on, expanding. Everybody having the thought that they did it, so we can probably do it.
Yeah. It's what happens. But as it mentions, Rupa Goswami mentions Shruti Shmriti Puranadi Pancharam. If your so-called practice of bhakti is not according to scriptures, it's simply a disturbance to society. It's a mental concoction. And that's what it is. It's like they had an experience in Mayapur. I had an experience in Mayapur where they were dressing Vamanadev up as, a young boy up as Vamanadev.
Yeah,
and the young boy was on the altar, and he'd come out from the altar, right? And they'd sit him down, they'd bathe his feet, and do worship and feed him in front of the deities, right? And I'm saying, hang on a second. According to the scriptures, this is an aparad. And so why are you doing this? Oh, there's a letter from Prabhupada. Can you show me the letter? No letter. So now they don't do it. They do it somewhere else. They do it out in one of the parks.
3 years they're doing the same thing.
Yeah, but they're not doing it anymore. That's the thing, because ministry just keeps pushing it and keeps pushing it and keeps pushing it, because these are things that Prabhupada did not give us. If we want to achieve success in the process of bhakti, we follow our acharya. It's so simple.
Nowadays, Mayapur worship has expanded so much.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the Ashtashakhi, they do this one, they are expanding the worship, but I'm seeing in the worship, it's become more like, you know, mixed up, like the way Bengalis, they do it in Navadvip. Like, you know, they do.
Yeah, but I mean, give credit where credit's due. Krishna Chaitanya, he's actually from Mumbai side.
Yeah.
He's the head pujari now. Jananiva's not the head pujari anymore. You will see, like down at the Ganga, they have Gangama, but that's not part of ISKCON. That's a private Grihasta project where all the shopkeepers there along the boundary wall, they got together and decided they want to have a Gangama temple. Now ISKCON is trying to regularize that worship, and the temple manager has been contacting me. But in terms of the temple worship, I feel they're kind of moving more towards Sri Vaishnava worship, which I don't think would be pleasing to Prabhupada.
It's very elaborate. This time also I saw many things. I've been seeing my long time worship through media because that's what I do, and I see, wow, this started. Oh, this you can do this, that way.
No, I mean I wouldn't take it necessarily as an example to follow. You know, look at what Prabhupada gave us in the deity worship and try to understand what Prabhupada. And you know, his idea, I mean, he told both Jamuna and Giriraj Maharaj to keep the worship simple. It's not the process for this age. If you keep the worship simple, it will deliver you back to Godhead. If we get too caught up in other things, especially in the deity worship, we'll forget what the process is. What is the process? What's the process for the age? Chanting Hare Krishna. That's our means of perfection. The deity worship puts us in a position where we can do this more purely. It's an assistant. It's not the end goal. You know, so we should always keep that clearly in sight. Our main focus is our japa. Our main focus is the chanting of Hare Krishna, kirtan, etc. And Krishna's kindly descended in the deity form to help us to chant purely. Yeah? So let's not get, and that's one of the problems I see is when we get too caught up in the ritual, we can tend to forget what we're meant to be doing.
Because they leave the curtain open and everybody's sitting giving the back.
To Prabhupada.
You know, like to the deities.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
we saw always the curtain closed, but this.
Hey, I mean, I keep, you know, I have a good relationship with Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, and you know, things that are important, I bring it to his attention. You know, things that aren't important, I don't really bother.
Nice too, but you know, when you say that this is not the proper way of doing things, that time you think, this is not right.
Well, it just have to.
Yeah.
It's like I was saying yesterday. You know, a lot of it's about relationship. Also, you have to have cultivate a good relationship with people. Then, when you get in that position where you have a good relationship, you can point things out. And so, I mean, I've been doing various aspects of deity worship with him for a long time, many years now. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to.
One of the unlimited questions.
Yeah. Well, it is my one. I just wanted to clarify a subtle, what we were just discussing with Shalagram, because on appearance days of Vishnu Tattva, like Vaman Dev or Nrsimha Dev or Ram Navami, as we don't have a deity of these.
You put a picture on the altar.
Because, I mean, what we have done is we worship the Shalagram as Vishnu Tattva in that.
You can do that. You can. I mean, because you can worship the Shalagram as any form of the Lord, but generally, my experience has been. I mean, I don't have a scriptural reference for it, but my experience has been is generally like, you know, a temple will worship this Shalagram as that deity, and they'll always do that. They won't change it depending on the festival. What I have seen in ISKCON temples is especially like, you know, going back 20 or 30 years, is you'll see that they'll have pictures of the various avatars for the festival, like Vaman and Varaha, you know, Ram, etc. They'll put a picture on the altar, put a garland on the picture, and just, it's more of a smarana kind of thing. Just because of a particular, you know, it's like, you don't have to pop up a deity every time there's a festival. You know, you've got Radha Govinda, you've got Gaunitai. So just, whenever you have those festivals, make them really wonderful, you know, and you have abhisheks and whatever. But then on other festivals, when you don't have deities, you can celebrate the pastime, celebrate the festival in a different way. It's not like every single festival has to have an abhishek. You know, like I've even seen some temples where they have Gaunitai, and like, you know, for Janmashtami they bathe Lord Chaitanya, for Nityananda Triyodasi, Balaram Purnima they bathe Nityananda, and for Radhashtami they put a sari on Lord Chaitanya.
I saw that. That was so scary.
Yeah, but I mean, temples do stuff because they speculate. Yeah, we understand that Lord Chaitanya, Balaram Hoilo Nitai, you know, we understand the philosophy, but it's still, he's manifested that form, so worship that form. Huh? Don't get overly creative.
But like on this idea of Vaishas, I was just curious, it's kind of specific, but I've seen some darshans of, in Mayapur and also Radharaman, of Krishna being dressed as a bumblebee Vaishya.
Weird.
Yeah.
Really weird.
It's not just me. I mean, it looks cute and sweet, but I was just thinking, is there
I
reference for it?
I remember like one year, right? I showed this to the GBC. I had a whole series of these vases, and then I put the bumblebee one up, and they're like, you know, like jaws dropping to the ground. They said, "Where's this?" Pointed downstairs. You know, they were just like blown away that this could happen in Mayapur.
Because that's something I thought is that, like with a lot of things, like Gopashtami and things, there may be Shastra references, but then also, is that our mood of worship?
Our mood of worship is Aishvarya, or reverence. Yeah, that's our mood. That's what's been established by our founder Acharya. So again, it gets back to the same point. In any of these things, what did Prabhupada say about it? Or if he wasn't there, or he didn't say something about it, what would he say about it? And I could just imagine if he came here to New York Temple and he was walking around the passageways, I'm pretty sure I have a fair idea of what he would say. Yeah? And I'm pretty sure if he's in New York and he saw Krishna dressed up as a bumblebee, that I'm sure he would not say, "Oh, that's very nice." I'm sure he wouldn't say that, as far as I can with my limited understanding. So, you know, we need to try as best we can to understand the mood of our founder Acharya and practice the worship in that mood. And if Krishna, you know, if the deity on the altar wants to appear as a bumblebee, then he will. He'll manifest himself. But we don't need to do strange things. We don't need to speculate. You know, our acharyas haven't given any, you know, as far as I'm aware, have not given us direction in relation to deity worship. They may have talked about different pastimes the Lord performs. That's fine. But isn't that in relation to deity worship? I don't think so. It's just, deity worship is very simple, very basic. You don't have to be, you know, a rocket scientist to figure it out. Just follow the rules that have been given by Krishna and by our various, you know, saintly persons, acharyas, etc., like that, and you'll get the success. But if you make it up, I don't know where you're going to wind up.
I have one small thing, because I remember you said previously that the deity can be offered some items according to the location.
Yeah.
Like for example, cookies or different things like that, kind of regionally specific. So how do you contrast that with then also this idea of dressing the deity, like I sent you pictures of Japan?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my sort of instant response to that, which I didn't bother writing because I knew it was going to be here, was, okay, you talk about regional dress. Here we are in New York. Say no more. You know, it's like, is that kind of like Radharani with a tank top on? Yeah, great. Huh? Or like they dressed well, the Pujari he dressed Banka Bihari in Levi's and a t-shirt and with an iPhone, and he was lucky to leave Vrindavan with his life. Yeah.
It's like nowadays the Durga Puja in Kolkata.
Is what?
The Durga Puja in Kolkata. They do all this. Durga Ma has phone in her hand. Then
what in her hand?
Phone,
Okay.
cell phone, and then all the
But just because these persons who are worshipping to fulfill their material desires do things like that, should we do things like that? No, definitely not. And so regional. I mean, in some cases you might make some exceptions, but even like you look at the dress that Prabhupada encouraged us to dress the deities, it's not Indian. It's not Indian dress. It's Victorian dress. Like you go back to the Victorian era, the big things with the big petticoats and stuff.
We have one dress.
Because that's what Prabhupada grew up with,
Right.
And also you'll see in Manipur, they put that hoop kind of thing. It's very, with the frill going around the edge, very, very attractive. That's like a traditional dress there, but it's not like regional dress. It's kind of a traditional thing, especially with the dancers they use. But some things like that. But that doesn't mean, for instance, like you dress Krishna up as a Kathak dancer or Orient Odyssey dancer or something like that. So I think or like I remember one time in one place they dressed Krishna, all the gopis and Radharani up as geishas.
Oh, carrots.
No, geisha.
Oh, the Japanese.
Yeah, the Japanese like.
Oh, really?
They're like high-class prostitutes. So it's kind of like, I think we don't let our imagination run riot. Yeah,
A question about Vaishyas for Lord Jagannath. Obviously, like there was a conversation earlier, we don't follow the style of worship of Jagannath Puri. But like, for instance...
Well, Ramanujacharya wanted to change it. He wanted to change the worship. So, one of the acharyas wanted to change the worship. That sort of tells us maybe we shouldn't be following it.
But like we do follow, obviously, like Hati Vaish.
Incorrectly. We're following it incorrectly. What do they do in Puri? You seen what they do? They have, like how they make crowns with the jari and the cardboard. Yeah. So they make a big thing that goes around his face. And not a mask. They're not covering his face. Exactly. Well, hopefully they're going to change that. I've asked them to change it. Something else. You don't cover his face because then, like, it's just like, if I put a mask over your face and you couldn't see out, what experience would that be for you? Wouldn't be pleasant. Huh?
Yeah, we fortunately, right above us we have the Hati Vaish, which is not covering his face.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like that's why we put this resolution through last year. It was like looking at how to observe these different festivals and that we don't change the form of the deity. Neither do we cover his face with masks.
Can you give an understanding on hands? Like sometimes we say
Well, but sometimes they put these hands on Jagannath. The gold hands and stuff. So, I mean, I don't have a praman for it one way or the other, but it is a practice that's been going on there they call it the Sonavesh. It's a practice that's been going on for a long time. And I do believe, I mean, maybe someone knows better than me, I do believe Lord Chaitanya saw that Vesh as well. Yes. So if the Supreme Personality of Godhead saw it and didn't say anything about it, I guess it must be bona fide. Yeah? So that's the sort of things we have to look at, And the Hati Vesh has been going on for generations in Puri. I know there's some Vaishnavas, who are really strongly against it. But, yeah, I don't have a praman one way or the other on that. But I know it's been going on for a long time in ISKCON. Same as Pushpa Abhishek. There are some senior Vaishnavas in ISKCON who think it's a concoction. There was a temple in the US, I think up in Seattle or somewhere like that, that followed Pushpa Abhishek, and they sent a letter to Prabhupada. They only ever did it once. And they were talking about the inaugural Pushpa, because actually the festival is Pusha or Posha. Yeah? And it's according to Posha Nakshatra. And the idea is you're supposed to bathe the deity in ghee on that day. It's like Posha means nourishing. And so they probably misunderstood or interpolated the word or something. and they call it Pushpa Abhishek, and they're offering lots and lots of flowers. And all Prabhupada, he wrote back and said, thank you for sending the photos. I think to observe the festival, you should offer more flowers. That's all he said. He didn't correct or anything like that. He just said more flowers. You know? So, you know, and like, is it harmful? Is it corrupting the Siddhanta? Is it corrupting the practice? Prabhupada says, Krishna's from the Vrindavan atmosphere, he's very fond of flowers. So we're throwing like thousands and thousands of flower petals over the deity. It's pleasing. It's pleasing to the Lord. The Devatas, you know, when Krishna's walking around, the Devatas are showering flowers on Krishna. So we can see like all these practices. I mean, I wrote a whole letter about it. There was one devotee who was just like really strongly criticizing it. So I wrote a whole letter quoting all these different references. Of course, I knew he wasn't going to accept it, but anyhow, that's where I'm at with it. I can't see there's any problem with it. You know, even like sometimes we did a festival once in New Govardhan on the encouragement of Krishna Chaitra Maharaj, where it was a lotus festival, and we had our Radha Krishna deities sitting in it. We had like a small pond, and we decorated it up with lotus leaves and stuff like that, and flowers. And the deities were sitting in the middle of the lotus of this pond on a table, you know. And so what we did is we had a whole bunch of lotus flowers there, and the devotees would come up and offer a flower to the deities, and we chant one of the names of Krishna or one of the names of Radharani. And so they didn't touch the deities, but they got very close to the deities. And so it just gave them a nice interaction with the deities. So I think, you know, if you're not corrupting the process of worship, you're not changing the process of worship, you're just adding a way that devotees can interact with the deities, what's the harm? You know, like there's a letter, and I quoted this letter in this thing. The devotees in Melbourne, Australia, had asked Prabhupada about offering ostrich feathers to the deities. And Srila Prabhupada wrote back, he said, there's no mention of it in the Shastra, but what's the harm? It's for decorating Krishna. So you see, like the principle there is to, you know, make the deity look very attractive, or what's been, you know, so just because it's not mentioned in the Shastra doesn't really matter. But, you know, yeah. But some devotees will criticize, you know, okay, Pushpa Abhishek's not mentioned in the Shastra, but we're trying to do something that's pleasing to the Lord. Like devotees will say, well, there's nothing mentioned in the Shastra about putting the deity in a pond in offering lotus flowers, but there is Shalila Vihar. He does like flowers. Shalila Vihar means water pastimes. So there's always water pastimes going on with Radha and Krishna. So, you know, I think sometimes we can get a little bit overly pedantic on these things. And so we need to be, I don't know, just like, you know, cautious not to speculate and introduce things that could corrupt the process of worship. I'm definitely not in favor of introducing things from other sampradayas, such as shataris and things like that, because just, you know, their whole mood of worship is quite different from our mood of worship, and their goal is different from our goal. So we need to keep that in mind. What is their goal? What is our goal? You want to go to the bathroom? In India, that means you want to go to the bathroom.
Or Govardhan. But
No, that's his hand.
The next controversial step with the flower festival is, well then, what about we see very often then throw the flower petal prasad on the crowd, and then usually it turns into a brawl.
Nectar Devotion mentions that sometimes, when in these festivals, and they're distributing, the things in relation to Govardhan Puja, when they're distributing, sometimes it falls on the floor, but it cannot become contaminated. And you know, again, I think, you know, I mean, as long as devotees aren't sort of like, you know, playing football with it and stuff like that, you know, that's, what's the harm? Because you see the exchanges between devotees, the relationships are deepened, they're sweetened, you know, so I really don't think that, you know, it's a big problem. Although some people are really adamant about it. But the thing is, read Prabhupada's books, you'll see he mentions there that even if Mahaprasad falls on the floor, what's the problem? But you know, it's like you just have to be practical, I think, sometimes. And even like, you know, I mean, my experience has been, I remember the first time I ever participated in a Pushpa Abhishek was at Chaupati. And Radhanath Maharaj was throwing it out. And I thought, well, if he's doing it, it's okay, you know. You know, because Radhanath Maharaj is quite knowledgeable in Prabhupada's books. You know, he reads a lot. Yeah, so yeah.
So if it's like for enjoy, everybody when they get that, they're enjoying. Everybody is smiling, and I think that is more important.
But they're enjoying glorifying Krishna. That's the point.
Not that if it falls on the floor. So I think that that thing like the mercy getting is more than.
Well, it's just like, you know, when we did the Panchatattva Abhishek, right? The first one we did, there was about 5,000 liters of liquids, and you know, we were all completely drenched in Charnamrita. We had these young boys that we used to call them the Kamaras. They've got these squeegees made out of like banana trunks cut in half, and they're just like going underneath the platform at the back, and the liquids are just like, you know, cascading down on them, you know. And so like, oh yeah, but you're touching Charnamrita with your feet. So what? You know, it's like, it's for the glorification. Like one time Prabhupada, I think it might have been Govinda Dasi, was in Prabhupada's room, and she was adjusting the curtains or something like that, or putting some curtains up. And she asked Prabhupada, can I stand on this desk here to adjust the curtains? And Prabhupada said, for serving Krishna, you can stand on my head. You know, so you have to look at what's the principle there, but not that we just completely disregard rules and regulations. We have to do it in a intelligent way. And like, you know, to bathe the Panchatattva for their installation, it was necessary to do it like that because they're such big deities. And Abhishek is part of installation. I mean, you know, we could have done it for the small deities, but was anyone there for the installation of the Panchatattva?
Yeah.
Huh?
He said you.
You were there.
But that was quite an experience. And like,
They do the same way, everything they are
yeah.
drenched.
But the thing is, like, if you talk to any devotee who's there, it's something that's just like etched into their memory. They'll never forget it. You know, they'll never forget it. And I think that's a really important, because one of the ideas in Krishna consciousness is to do samskars, to make lasting impressions of Krishna consciousness. So if we had have bathed you know, because the Panchatattva, the Utsav deities are about this big, if we had have bathed them, how many devotees would have turned up? 100, 200, which is like normal for, maybe 1,000 for a normal Abhishek. That temple room was jam-packed, you know? And like, especially when we're bathing the deities with the different flower waters, there's all these different flower waters we did, and one of them is called Pancha Pushpa. It's this fragrance they make in Calcutta, which again is not an authorized sort of thing, but it's got all these essences of flower fragrances distilled into it. And when we poured that over the deities, the fragrance just like wafted out through the whole temple room. It was like, wow, you know, such a sensory overload. Observing Krishna and smelling all these beautiful fragrances that are coming from his bathing, you know, this just increases bhakti. And so, okay, there's rules and regulations, but if doing things like this increases a person's genuine devotion, not some show bottle thing, but if they genuinely increase a person's devotion for Krishna, then I can't see where the problem is. There's one time Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, and the head pujari was bathing Radha Shyamasundar on Janmashtami, like the large deities. And what had happened sometime previously is the deities in another part of India had been damaged. When one of the devotees who was bathing, he dropped the pot and it broke Krishna's finger. And so what happened then was they were having this conversation in Vrindavan, and devotees were talking about that, and then one of the devotees, it might have been Harikesh, said to Prabhupada, oh, but the head pujari, he says it's in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, which it is, bathing the deities on Janmashtami. But then Prabhupada says, I don't care, this Vilas, that Vilas, no risk. You know, so Prabhupada was giving a higher principle than following what was in the scriptures. We don't put the deity at risk. So just like doing, you know, abhisheks on marble deities, it's very risky, and it damages the marble. So, you know, I used to be in favor of it, but after reading some information about how it affects the marble, I'm not in favor of it at all, because it damages the marble. So, you know, things like this, you find that even if it's not mentioned in the scriptures, if it does nurture the devotion of the devotees, then it's a good thing. Just like putting ostrich feathers on the deities. If it nurtures the devotion, it's a good thing. Because that's the main principle. It's like, what's it, smartavya satam vishnu, vishmatavna jatachit, sava vidyaserishu, eti orevikinkaro. The two main principles of devotional service, always remember Krishna and never forget him. All the rules and regulations are servants of these two principles. Still working? So, yeah. A lot of enthusiastic questions, huh?
Well,
This must be because of your determined chanting, yeah?
if you find, like for example, Tulsi, you just find Tulsi on the floor, and we don't know if Tulsi was offered. We don't know what to do with this Tulsi.
Well, I mean, usually what I see, especially in the temple room, sometimes when you circumambulate Tulsi, you'll see a Tulsi leaf. So what I've seen devotees do is they pick up that Tulsi leaf and put it at the base of the plant. Now, whether that's authorized or not, I have no idea, but it's a common practice in ISKCON. Yeah, just, on the earth. Yeah. Because Tulsi's function is to serve Krishna. That's her life, is just to serve Krishna. So she's a great inspiration for all of us. Just like here in New York, you've got the most amazing Tulsi. If you ever get the chance, I don't know if you've done it, but go up on the roof. Are ladies allowed on the roof? There must be, because the lady looks after them. Yeah. But you're the one who looks after them, eh? Amazing Tulsi here. Just the most vibrant, healthy Tulsi I've ever seen. I've seen lots of Tulsi. And the Tulsi here are just vibrant, And yeah, so, yeah. Just take darshan of Tulsi. Bhakti Pradayani Srimati Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai.
I had a question about your mentioning that the deities are dressed in Victorian style. So, if they were dressed, so Krishna and Radharani wearing whatever they're wearing in Vrindavan is not opulent enough for our consciousness?
Our consciousness is not ready for that sort of stuff. I mean, Krishna sometimes would just have like a simple wrap, around his waist and be running around like a crazy guy,
I mean, when we read that he's always decorated with pearls.
Sorry?
When we read that he's always looks nice and he's decorated with pearls.
Yeah, but that's because, if we see Krishna dressed up very simply, we'll think he's the same as us. But when we see the opulence, because of where we're at, our consciousness, then we'll start to understand that this is God.
Yeah, because I was always wondering, where's the style coming from?
The Victorian dress. This big full dress. You don't normally see descriptions in the scriptures, for instance, of Radharani wearing these big full dresses and the puff sleeves and all that. That's very Victorian style. And if you look at some of the Rajput kings also, you can get photo books of the Rajput kings in India and also some of the kings in South India and all the turbans they had with the jewelry and stuff. Some of them are really opulent. And the dresses they had with all the jewelry and jari work, and like they had jari work made of pure gold, or I think 22 karat gold. Very, very opulent. And so that's also influenced. There's a lot of different influences there. But like the dress style with the big full dress, that's very Victorian. The big sort of hoop petticoat and stuff like that.
So one question still is like in my head. So when
Only one?
When everybody's doing elaborate, deity service or whatever, you said to make it simple. But if it gives enjoyment and inspires other to do more of, like doing the singar or whatever.
No, I'm talking more about the ritual.
Okay.
Keep the ritual simple.
Okay.
It doesn't have, like the dressing should be very opulent. The bog offering should be very opulent. The flowers should be very beautiful and fragrant. Lots of nice scents. The same with scents. Like a lot of the scents we get are just chemicals. But if you put a bit of time into it, you can actually find good quality scents. The easiest way is just to go to Dubai, and they have really good quality scents there. But they're expensive. A little bottle like this, $700. Krishna likes a guru. His breath smells like a guru. But little bottle, 3 tola, $700.
And that day, and Radharani likes camphor. So I just wanted to.
Yeah. No, you can offer nice fragrances. Just like in Germany, I was given a bottle of Bulgarian rose oil. It's only small, like 5 ml bottle, but it's worth a few $100. But it's nice quality. Take it home and give it to my wife. She likes rose oil. But there's you can get very good quality things for Krishna. But in terms of the ritual, that was my point. It's not to make the ritual complicated. I mean, some people like the ritual. That's fine. They can do more. They can do mudras and all that sort of stuff. But not that it becomes all very, very complicated. Because the idea is to give everyone the opportunity to engage in deity worship. The more people who can engage, the better. Not that it becomes so complicated that no one wants to do it, which was happening quite a bit in the mid to late 80s. There were a number of devotees were sort of pushing it up and pushing it up. It became so complicated that it became quite an exclusive thing. And then what happens is when those devotees go away or go do some other service, the whole thing collapses. So keep the ritual simple so it's sustainable. And that as many people as possible can do it. Prabhu?
I have a question regarding this aspect of engaging others in deity worship. And just like the importance of that, I experienced that myself. And like Rajmohan, for example, would just have me come and wash the plate after he's doing Sodashopacha puja for Krishna or anything like that. My question is, how do we properly recognize someone who we see we can engage in that process? Let's say there's a new bhakta that comes to the temple. How is there a certain criterion that's required for someone to be engaging in certain forms of deity seva? Not necessarily, of course, not on the altar, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I think you just need to look at a person's nature, and if they look like a clean, orderly person, then they could be a good candidate. But I was talking with Braj Mahanprabhu about this the other day, in terms of when you're looking for devotees to engage in deity worship, you need to engage them, but be assessing them at the same time, just evaluating their capacity. Just like Anantacharya knows in London, they have quite a process of entering into the deity department, doing service. Like first off, you'll start doing some backup service, like cleaning paraphernalia, making gala, stuff like that. And you might do that for some time, like a year or two or whatever. And then after, actually I think paraphernalia service, then you go and help in the kitchen. So you'll be, helping with cut-ups and washing pots and stuff like that. So, and the head patriarch is, evaluating it. And then maybe, once you get Diksha, Brahman Diksha, then you might start cooking for the deities. Then after some time, a year or 2 or 3 or whatever, then you might wind up going on the altar and doing some of the simpler artis. Like the Vaikalika, where you offer the fruit and then do a dup arti. Things where you're not touching the deity. And then after that, you'll start working on, or start doing the darshan, because you've got to put the deities back on the altar. And so, you start to handle the deities, you get used to moving deities, especially small deities. And then after you've done that for a while, maybe you'll be doing night dressing for Gaurnitai. They have small Gaurnitai there. So there's a gradual process. And this is not something that's, like a recent invention. In Radharaman temple in Vrindavan, they have a process where like the young men, when they engage them in the worship, from the period of them first coming to the altar, starting to do service, to when they actually get to touch Radharaman, not dress him or anything like that, they touch him, 17 years. So this, in London, because the common thing, and I'm sure Braj Mahan's familiar with this, the common thing, right, is you get devotees that come and they want to do some deity seva. You ask them what they want. I want to dress Radha Govinda. Straight away, they want to go straight to the main altar and do the main service. But you need to evaluate their capacity to care for the deities, because you're dealing directly with Krishna. You have to know how to satisfy him with your service. It takes time to learn how to do that. It's just like, if you look at the pastimes of the Lord in Vrindavan, and devotees are starting to serve Krishna, it's not like straight away a new gopi will come and she goes straight away and is doing intimate service for Radha and Krishna. There's a period of training. So it's perfectly valid to have the same thing in our ISKCON temples. And also, deities like these, deities like Radharani, were personally installed by Prabhupada. Actually, I don't think Prabhupada actually installed these deities, but he did. He had them in a Pandal program, yeah, but he didn't install them here. That came later. But the point is, like Prabhupada, these are deities that have been here on the planet since Prabhupada's time, and some Prabhupada directly installed. So they're kind of like historical deities in a sense, because these deities were given to Prabhupada by the Queen of Jaipur, wasn't it? Yeah, so they have quite prominent significance. I mean, there's difference and there's not difference, because all deities are ultimate Krishna. We have to protect the deities as best we can. But I think you have to be very careful about who you allow to touch the deities, because I have seen many disasters in ISKCON, and you don't want that to happen. But also it's like, if the devotees aren't trained properly, they will eventually commit offenses, and this is detrimental to them. So by properly training devotees in the process of bhakti, they know how to practice bhakti, they'll get the most benefit out of it. But if you just strike, I remember when the day I got Brahman, I was put on the altar. I had no idea what I was doing. I did all sorts of stupid things. Yeah. But and that's why we started this school in Mayapur, was because so often it happens the devotees get Brahman and they're thrown on the altar. There's the deities, there's the book, go for it. That's not fair. That's just not fair. It puts people under a lot of stress. I think it's better to train devotees properly. So that's why we have school. G.
I was also just going to say that, as you know, in London, their Pujari, and also my sister, they're training people in, like, even before they enter Pujari or start their backup service in, like, mood, etiquette, so they get familiarized.
Yeah.
So from the beginning, there's some kind of, like, guidance and mentorship.
Yeah, they also have a course that they have to participate in. And one of the things that Jayananda Prabhu, he and I were talking about before, we haven't got around to doing it because there's other courses we've been working on, but we want to do an onboarding course for new people when they come to the duty department, so that they have basic understanding of things you do and don't do. But it's training so vital. Like a head Pujari, they selected the people they want to train, they train them, then they mentor them later on to ensure that the standards are maintained. Huh? Yeah. I think I'm worn out. Yeah, 1:30. And what time is the Sunday feast?
Technically starts at 4:20, but it really gets going by 5:30. 6 o'clock is the RT.
And the class?
Class is 6:45, I think it's 7.
Oh, good, so I can rest a bit.
Small question.
Small. I'll give you a small answer.
The question is about purifying something that was impure, like, for example, let's say a pot. It hasn't been used a lot, but it still has life, it can be used. Can that be purified, or you just have to toss it?
What sort of pot? What's it made of?
Stainless steel. Stainless steel with a copper bottom.
Right. Like for cooking?
For cooking.
Right. So what do you want to do with it?
Well, in cooking, whatever we prepare to be able to offer to Krishna.
Well, generally, like anything, like say for instance you're in the kitchen, any utensil you use, you rinse it first. Yeah, all the bulgur you use, you rinse it first. Unless it's something like flour or butter or something, you're not going to rinse that first. But fruits, vegetables, things like that, you always rinse them first, to make sure they're as clean as you possibly make them. There's a letter Prabhupada wrote to Rukmini. Rukmini is the wife of Anutama. And I think you're all familiar with Rukmini here, right? She comes up here a bit. Yeah. So Prabhupada wrote this letter to Rukmini. He said, the idea is summit cleanliness. That will satisfy Krishna. So when you're on the summit of the mountain, it means you're at the top. It means you can't go any higher. So if you've got something so clean, you can't possibly make it any cleaner, that means it's clean. An example, Prabhupada was in Vrindavan and Jamuna was serving Prabhupada, cleaning his rooms and things like that. He was staying at the Radha Damodar temple. And that was the time when because there's a particular time of year in Vrindavan in the start of the summer where you get lots of dust storms. And dust is really fine, it just gets into everything. And so Jamuna was very meticulously cleaning Prabhupada's room, wiping the desk down and taking everything off the desk and wiping and putting back exactly where Prabhupada liked them and stuff like that. Anyway, so she'd finished cleaning Prabhupada's room. She was feeling satisfied that she'd cleaned the room properly. And then Prabhupada came back and he was sitting down behind the desk and he's moving a few things around, doing things. And then he said, Jamuna, when will you ever learn? And she says, Swamiji, what do you mean? And she says, when will you ever learn? Swamiji, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, when will you ever learn to clean? And Jamuna's like completely perplexed. She didn't know what Prabhupada was talking about because she thought everything was spotlessly clean. Prabhupada opened up the stapler that was on his desk. He wiped his finger inside the stapler and said, see, dust. If there's any dust, it's not clean. If there's any dirt, it's not clean. If it's not in its original state, it's not clean. Like most of the paraphernalia you buy in India, for instance, they polish it with dara, which puts like an emulsion layer. It's got a rubbing alcohol in it, which is a fine abrasion, which gives it the shine. But then they also put some emulsion layer over it to when you get cartels polished with brass or something like that, you play the cartels, and what happens to your hands? They're black. Yeah? That's the emulsion coming off. That protects them from the oxygen so they don't tarnish. But it's an artificial shine. If you use something that's mildly abrasive, then you'll get the natural color of the metal coming out. And that's what you're looking for. Yeah, so everything should be maximum clean.
Was there a solution in that situation?
Huh?
Was there a solution to the cleaning in that situation with Prabhupada?
Yeah, open the stapler up and clean inside the stapler.
Oh, okay. She didn't get in there.
Yeah. You got to be very, very particular to cleaning. Like everything should. I mean, just if you want to do some cleaning, just walk around the temple. There's a lifetime of cleaning here. Yeah? It's a big project. There's lots of things going on. It's a lifetime of cleaning. And if you're not sure where to start, just go to the second floor, the passageway on the second floor, just outside the dress room. There's a horrible stain on the floor. If Braj Mahan gives me a mop and a bucket, I'll clean it myself.
I won't give you.
I mean, it's really important that, just think that Prabhupada's coming tomorrow. What would this temple, forget it, right? What would this temple look like if Prabhupada was coming tomorrow? It would be very, very different. And that's how you keep Prabhupada alive within you. Is you keep it, just like I did an audit of the worship at Bhaktivinoda Manor. I think it was in 2010 I did here. I think it was 2008 or 2009 we did Bhaktivinoda Manor. And they have Prabhupada's rooms in Bhaktivinoda Manor, which Prabhupada personally used. And some of the devotees were saying we should keep things exactly like they were when Prabhupada was here. Yeah, in one sense I agree, but not that it's the same things decaying. We should, because that's just making it a museum. But if we want to keep Prabhupada alive in our hearts, we're expecting that he could come. There's an interesting story in the Krishna book. When Uddhava went to Vrindavan, and it's a beautiful story, really, really nice story. Uddhava, he went to Vrindavan, and he was expecting to see Krishna at any moment. The Krishna was just going to pop out from behind a tree. And I remember the first time I went to Vrindavan, I read that story. And I had that sense of I was expecting Krishna was just going to pop out from behind a tree. And so, I was really preparing myself to see Krishna. So I think if we can do the same with Prabhupada, it's like everything we're doing in the temple, what would we do if Prabhupada was looking over our shoulder? How would we do it if we thought Prabhupada was going to walk through the door tomorrow or later on today? It would be very different. So that's the mood we need to cultivate. And in that way, by cultivating that mood, Prabhupada will be alive for you. Okay? Do you mind if I finish? I'm a bit tired. Thank you. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki. Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Oh, I did have water here. I was thinking, I'm so thirsty. Hare Krishna. So, what's the Sunday feast about? Makes it easy for me.
Usually it's Bhagavad Gita verse, but you can just...
Oh, pick a verse. Okay, that'll do. Okay? Yeah, I'll put this inside. Was that okay?
Very nice.
Sorry to harass you about sitting over there.
No,